Good evening. As you listen to the sound of my voice, you might begin to notice your breath deepening slowly. Allow me to be your gentle guide tonight, effortlessly leading you through the peaceful landscapes of a life so wild, it feels more like a dream. A story that begins not in a palace ballroom, but in the dust and sweat of the most magnificent stables in the world. And as you begin to settle, just one gentle thought. If this space feels like a comfort to you, you might consider a soft tap on the like or subscribe button. But only if that thought feels as effortless as a quiet breath. Your rest is what truly matters here, and if you feel so inclined, you can let me know in the comments where in the world you're listening from tonight, and what time it is there. It's a quiet way of knowing we are all sharing this moment, in our own peaceful corners of the globe. Now is the time. Let the world outside dim to a soft glow, listen to the quiet hum of the night, and let's take our first gentle step into the dreamscape of our story. The first thing you are aware of is not the scent of your mother's perfume or the softness of a lace-trimmed cradle. The first thing you truly know is the smell of hay horse and warm leather. You are a child of the grand stables of Versailles. Your world isn't a nursery, it's a vast, echoing cathedral built to honor the horse, the symbol of the king's power. Outside these walls, King Louis XIV, is turning France into the glittering center of the universe. HES building palaces of golden light, designing gardens so perfect they seem to correct nature, and orchestrating a court so intricate, so full of unspoken rules, that a single misplaced glance could ruin a family for generations. But that's their world. Your world is here. Your father, Gaston d'Aubigny, is a man of some importance, but not in the way of the perfumed dukes who drift through the hall of mirrors. He is the secretary to the king's master of the horse, the Comte d'Armagnac. This makes your father the administrator of this entire equestrian city. He is a man of ledgers and logistics, but he lives and breathes the culture of the sword. The master of the horse is responsible for more than just the royal mounts. He is responsible for training the king's pages. These are the sons of France's finest families, sent here to learn how to become men of the court. And what that really means is they are here to learn how to fight. You grow up a strange, singular creature in this world of boys. While other girls your age are sequestered away, learning needlepoint and the catechism, you are an unofficial, and often unnoticed, fixture in the training yard. You are a ghost in breeches, weaving between the sweating bodies of teenage boys as they practice their lunges and parries. You don't have a tutor explaining the nuances of Racine's poetry. You have the stable master explaining the importance of a firm grip and a balanced stance. You watch them. You absorb everything. The precise flick of a wrist that directs the point of a foil. The explosive power coiled in the legs before a lunge. The way a duel is a conversation where the last word is always spoken in steel. The world of women. A short walk away in the main palace might as well be on the moon. You see them sometimes, these creatures of silk and powdered hair, rustling through the gardens. They speak in a language of dropped fans and veiled insults. Their battles are fought with whispers. It seems dreadfully boring. Why whisper when you can shout? Why drop a fan when you could drop an opponent? It's a logic that seems perfectly clear to you, that would be horrifying to almost anyone else in 17th century France. Historians to this day are not entirely sure how you were formally educated. The records from this time are, to put it mildly, a little Lettuce himself, sit you down and teach you to read and write with the same diligence he applied to his accounts. Or was your education something more practical? Something absorbed through your skin, a literacy of the body rather than the page? You learn the geometry of the duel, the physics of a moving horse, the psychology of an opponent. It's an education of that there is no doubt, just not one that would get you very far in a convent. And the pages are learning more than just swordplay. This is a finishing school for the elite. They learn to dance, to sing, to compose a polite turn of phrase, to vault onto a horse in full armor. It's a bizarre and complete curriculum, and you are its silent, self-appointed student. You don't just watch the sword drills. You watch the dancing masters, noting how a fencer's footwork and a dancer's steps are cousins. You hear the singing lessons. You're picking up the melodies, building a nest of skills, a strange collection of abilities that no one thinks to teach a girl because no one can imagine a girl would ever need them. One afternoon, when the yard is quiet, you pick up a practice foil. It's lighter than a real sword with a blunted tip, but it has a weight to it. A purpose. You mimic the stance you've seen 1,000 times. You lift the blade, you are a man extension of your will. It doesn't feel like a transgression. It feels like coming home. The core metal of the hilt rests in your palm as if it were made for you, and in the dusty, sun-drenched quiet of the king's stables, a path that no one could have predicted begins to unfold at your feet. The foil in your hand feels less like a tool and more like a part of your own body, a strange new finger that ends in a point of pure intention. It's one thing to watch the pages practice their craft, another thing entirely to feel the pull of the muscles in your own back, the solid connection of your feet to the dirt floor. Your father, a man more pragmatic than you might expect, doesn't forbid it. In fact, he seems to find it quietly amusing, this strange little daughter of his. Perhaps he sees it as a harmless eccentricity, a phase. Or maybe, just maybe, he understands something that the rest of the world doesn't. In a world as dangerous and unpredictable as this one, the ability to defend yourself is a more valuable dowry than a plot of land or a title. So, he indulges you. He doesn't hire a private fencing master for you. That would be a scandal too far, even for him. Instead, he simply allows it. He allows you to be a shadow in the training sessions, to pick up the discarded foils, to practice the moves in the quiet moments when the yard is empty. On the pages, the flock of aristocratic sons, what do they make of you? At first, you're an oddity. A mascot. Their amusement begins to curdle into something else, respect, and for some, a little bit of fear. Your education is piecemeal, stone and fragments. You'll watch the fencing master, a man named Labin, correct a page's clumsy lunge. You listen to his sharp critiques, how a wrist is weak, how an attack is telegraphed, how a back must be kept straight. You don't just hear the words, you absorb the meaning. Later alone, you'll repeat the movement, correcting the angle of your own wrist, keeping your back ramrod straight. You are your own teacher, and your classroom is the echo of other people's lessons. This is where you learn one of the oddest and most vital skills of a swordsman, something they don't mention in the heroic poems, how to read a man's vanity. The pages are peacocks. They want to look good. They practice the flashy moves, the dramatic disarms, the things that will earn a round of applause in a demonstration. They neglect the simple, effective, and frankly, rather boring defensive moves. You, on the other hand, have no audience to impress. You learn the ugly, practical side of fighting. You learn to parry, to deflect, to wait. You learn that the most effective move is often the one that looks the least impressive. The court of Louis XIV is a theatre, and everyone is playing a part. The men are taught to be brave, the women to be demure. But you're backstage, seeing how the props work. You're learning that the performance of gender is just that, a performance. You wear breeches because they're practical for what you want to do, not as a statement. You learn to handle a sword because it interests you, not because you want to be a man. These distinctions are lost on everyone else, but they are crystal clear to you. You are not a boy. You are not a girl. You are simply Julie. And Julie wants to learn how to fight. It's during this time that a fascinating and much debated part of your education occurs. Some historians claim your father, seeing your raw talent, arranged for you to receive secret, one-on-one lessons from the best fencing masters at court. They suggest that these lessons happened at odd hours, in secluded courtyards, far from prying eyes. It's a romantic image, the young girl, sword in hand, learning from a grizzled master under the moonlight. Other historians are more skeptical. They argue that this is a later invention, a way to explain how a woman could become so preternaturally skilled. They believe you were entirely self-taught, a prodigy who learned it through sheer observation and relentless practice. The truth, as is often the case, is probably somewhere in the middle, a mixture of official neglect and clandestine encouragement. One day, a new page arrives, a boy with more arrogance than talent. He sees you practicing and scoffs, making a loud comment to his friends about girls playing with sticks. He means for it to sting, to put you back in what he perceives as your place. He expects stares or for you to run and hide. He does not expect you to turn, raise your foil, and calmly tell him to show you how it's done then. A small crowd gathers. The other pages, who have learned to leave you be, watch with a mixture of apprehension and glee. The new boy, trapped by his own pride, has no choice but to accept. He snatches up a practice foil. The two of you salute, a formal motion that feels both absurd and deeply serious. And then you fight. He comes at you with a flurry of aggressive, sloppy attacks, the kind you've seen 100 times. HES trying to overwhelm you, to win through sheer force. You do nothing. You do nothing. You deflect his blade with an almost lazy flick of your wrist. HES getting frustrated, his movements growing wider, more desperate. You can feel his confidence beginning to crumble. You are not just defending, you are teaching him a lesson in humility. On his fourth lunge, you don't just block. In a single, fluid motion, you parry his blade, twist your wrist, and send his foil spinning out of his hand. It clatters to the ground, loud in the sudden silence. You don't gloat. You don't smile. You simply lower your foil, give him a small, almost pitying nod and walk away. You leave him standing there, disarmed and utterly humiliated, in front of all his new peers. The lesson is learned, and not just by him. From that day on, no one in the grand stables ever questions why you are holding a sword. They just make sure they stay on your good side. Your education in the yard is complete. The air in the stables, once your entire world, begins to feel stale. The controlled violence of the practice yard is no longer enough. You are a young woman now, perhaps 16 or 17 years old, and a different kind of restlessness is stirring within you. It's a feeling that has little to do with swords and everything to do with the stifling perfection of Versailles. The gilded cage, no matter how beautiful, is still a cage. You feel a pull towards the horizon, a desire for a life that isn't mapped out in the pages of your father's ledgers. And as is so often the case, this desire finds a focus, a human catalyst. His name is Sr. Anis. HES, not a page, not some fresh-faced boy from a noble family. He is an assistant fencing master, a man who lives by the skill of his arm. HES older than you, but not by much, and he possesses a quiet confidence that the peacocks in the yard lack. He doesn't just teach the moves, he understands the deadly art behind them. HES a professional, in a world of amateurs. And he sees you, he doesn't see a girl playing at being a soldier. He sees your tight footwork, your economical parries, your unnerving calm. He sees a kindred spirit. Your interactions are subtle at first. A shared glance across the yard, a brief nod of approval from him when you execute a difficult maneuver perfectly. He starts leaving books on fencing theory where you might find them, treatises by Italian masters full of diagrams and philosophy. It's a silent conversation, a courtship conducted through the shared language of the blade. The scent of hay and horses is now mixed with something else, something new and charged and a little bit dangerous. You fall into what feels like love to a teenager who has only ever known the company of boys and the cold logic of a duel. It's a fierce, consuming connection. With Sr. Anis, you don't have to pretend to be anything you're not. You don't have to hide your skills or soften your edges. He admires your strength. He admires your strength. He is not intimidated by it. He is drawn to it. This, you realize, is a rare and intoxicating quality in a man. The two of you meet in secret, in the shadowy corners of the vast Versailles estate, your conversations hurried and whispered. He tells you he has to leave, to disappear into the provinces where the king's justice is a little less swift. He plans to head south, towards the freewheeling port city of Marseille. He assumes he will be going alone. He is wrong. The thought of staying behind is unbearable. What would be your fate? Your father, for all his pragmatism, would eventually have to do something with you. That something would almost certainly be marriage. You would find a suitable, respectable man, a merchant, a minor official, someone who would be baffled and horrified by his sword-wielding wife. You would be expected to produce heirs, manage a household, and let your foil gather dust. The future unspools before you like a dreary, grey tapestry. It is a life sentence of boredom. It is a kind of death, So you make a decision. It's not a decision born of logic or careful planning. It's a pure, instinctual leap into the unknown. When Ernest tells you he must flee, you simply say you are coming with him. This is another of those moments where historians wish the walls could talk. Did Ernest try to dissuade you? Did he point out the sheer madness of the idea? A young woman, gently born, running away from the heart of the French court with a penniless fugitive. It was unthinkable. Or was he, in his heart, thrilled by your audacity? Did he see in your impulsive declaration a reflection of his own rebellious spirit? The records, written by men who could barely conceive of such a female character, are silent. What we know is the result. You don't pack a large bag. You don't write a tearful farewell letter. You are not a heroine from a romance novel. You are a pragmatist. You take what you need, a change of clothes, your practical breeches, of course, whatever money you can scrape together, and your sword. Leaving the sword would be like leaving a lung. One night, under the cover of darkness, you slip away from the stables, from the looming silhouette of the palace, from the only home you have ever known. You meet Ernest at a prearranged spot. There's no grand, cinematic farewell. There's only the quiet shuffle of feet on a dusty road in the vast, starry sky above. You are leaving behind a world of gilded security and stepping into a world of absolute uncertainty. There is no safety net, no title to protect you, no family to fall back on. It's just you, your lover, and the long, dark road to the south. For the first time in your life, you are truly, terrifyingly free. And it feels like breathing for the very first time. The grand, manicured avenues of Versailles quickly give way to something else, the real France. It's a landscape of rutted dirt roads, deep mud, and the pervasive smell of farm animals. The romance of the escape, the thrill of rebellion, very quickly meets the cold, hard reality of being poor and on the run. The money you scraped together, a handful of coins that seemed like a fortune in your small room at the stables, dwindles with alarming speed. Each loaf of stale bread is a negotiation with poverty. Your appearance is a constant source of confusion and suspicion. A young woman in men's breeches, traveling with a man who is clearly not her husband or her brother, carrying a sword at her hip like a soldier. In the small, conservative villages you pass through, you are an affront to the natural order of things. You attract stares, whispers, and a fair amount of unwanted attention. Men in taverns, full of cheap wine and bravado, see what they think is an easy target, and their minds fill in the blanks with crude assumptions. You don't stand up. You simply turn on your stool, look the blacksmith dead in the eye, and with a voice as cold and sharp as a shard of ice, you say you could run him through before he even cleared the door. There's no anger in your voice, just a simple statement of fact. The absolute, unwavering certainty in your eyes is more terrifying than any threat. The blacksmith, who has probably never faced anything more dangerous than a stubborn mule, hesitates. He looks at your hand, resting casually on the pommel of your rapier. He looks back at your face, and he sees he has made a terrible mistake. He mutters an apology, turns tail, and practically flees the tavern. The room, which had been buzzing with anticipation, goes silent. You turn back to your meal as if nothing happened. From then on, Ernest learns to let you handle these situations yourself. This journey is also your first real taste of the world outside the bubble of the court. You see poverty that you couldn't have imagined. You see peasants whose lives are dictated by the rhythm of the harvest and the whims of a distant lord. You see how vast and varied France is, how different the accents are from one region to the next, how the wine and the cheese and the local superstitions change every 50 miles. It's a brutal, exhausting, and deeply educational experience. There's a curious detail from this period that finds its way into the early, often sensationalized biographies written about you. It's the singing for your supper trope. The story goes that you and Ernest, when completely out of money, would enter a town square or a busy tavern and put on a show. He would perform feats of swordsmanship, and you, to every earnest astonishment, would sing. Is this true? Academics argue about it endlessly. Some see it as a romantic embellishment, a foreshadowing of your future career. It seems to neat to perfect a story. Others argue that it makes perfect sense. You were a child of the court, where singing was part of a well-rounded education. You likely had a pleasant, if untrained voice. What could be a more disarming and surprising combination than a sword fight into a beautiful folk song? It's a perfect way to lower people's defenses and earn a few coins. Whether you sang or not, you survived. You learned to live by your wits. You learned that your reputation, which would have been a ruinous liability in Versailles, was a form of currency out here on the road. The whispers that followed you, about the girl with the sword, became a shield. People might stare, but they learned to keep their distance. You were no longer just Julie d'Orbigny, daughter of a court official. You were becoming something else, a character of your own creation, forged on the dusty roads and in the smoky taverns of 17th century France. The journey south is more than a geographical relocation, it's a crucible burning away the girl you were and revealing the woman you are becoming. The road is a harsh teacher, and the lessons are relentless. Hunger is a constant companion, a dull ache in your stomach that sharpens the senses. You learn to appreciate the simple miracle of a fresh loaf of bread, the warmth of a fire on a cold night. The world of a fire on a cold night. The world has been stripped of its courtly illusions. There is no poetry here, only prose, and it is oft unwritten in mud and sweat. Your relationship with S.E.O. Anis is also being tested. The initial flame of passionate rebellion is now flickering in the cold wind of reality. You are no longer just lovers running away, you are business partners in the grim business of survival. And you realize you need a better business plan. Relying on your intimidating presence and the occasional impromptu song is not sustainable. You need a reliable way to make people give you their money. It's S.E.R. Anis who has the idea, born of his own background as a fencing master. He says one evening that people will pay for a good show, that they love a spectacle. HES right. The lives of most people in the towns you pass through are monotonous and hard. A traveling circus, a fire eater, a bear on a chain, these are major events. Entertainment is a rare and precious commodity. And what do you have to offer? A very particular and very marketable set of skills. So you begin to formalize your act. You arrive in a new town, not as furtive fugitives, but as traveling performers. You find the busiest square or the most popular tavern. S.E.R. Anis acts as the master of ceremonies, his loud, confident voice gathering a crowd. He plays the part of the seasoned showman, warming up the audience with some flashy, but harmless, sword tricks. He can juggle daggers, slice a piece of fruit thrown in the air, the kind of thing that looks impressive but requires more showmanship than actual fighting prowess. Then comes the main event. S.E.R. Anis introduces you with a grand, theatrical flourish, presenting Mademoiselle Julie, a woman who handles a blade with the grace of a dancer and the ferocity of a musketeer. You step into the circle, dressed in your now worn breeches, your face serious, your sword held loosely at your side. The crowd murmurs, they've never seen anything like it. Your performance is not about flash. It's about precision and control. You don't just swing your sword around. You perform a series of fencing drills. Your movements straight the classic parries, quart, tierce, second, your blade a blur of silver. You show them a perfect lunge, your body extending in a straight, powerful line. It's not a mock fight, it's a demonstration of a deadly art form. The crowd, most of whom have only ever seen clumsy tavern brawls, is mesmerized. They can sense the authenticity, the cold danger in your controlled movements. And then, at the climax of the duel, you disarm him. You do it disarm that arrogant page back at Versailles with a quick, elegant twist of the wrist that sends his sword flying. The crowd gasps, and then erupts into cheers. The story has a satisfying conclusion. The woman has triumphed. It subverts all their expectations, and they love it. After the show, as you collect the coins, you hear the whispers about whether you are really that good. You are no longer just a woman with a sword. You are a performer selling them a fantasy of female power. There's a strange, almost comical historical footnote from this period of your life. According to some of the chronicles, to keep the act fresh, you would sometimes challenge men from the audience to a friendly duel. Of course, no man would want to be seen fighting a woman. So, to entice them, you would offer a prize. If they could so much as touch you with their blunted blade, you would give them a kiss. If you won, you got all the money in their pockets. It was a brilliant piece of psychological manipulation. Their pride would be piqued, and the potential reward of a kiss from this strange and beautiful creature was too much to resist. Needless to say, you never had to pay up. You would toy with them, letting them get close, then gracefully sidestepping their clumsy attacks, all while the crowd roared with laughter. You were not only defeating them, you were gently humiliating them for their own entertainment. You were monetizing their male ego. It was a masterclass in both swordsmanship and marketing. Living this life on the road, you and Desi are Anessa bound together by a shared fiction. You are partners, co-conspirators, but the intimacy you once shared is changing. It's becoming a professional partnership. The lines are blurring between the performance and reality. The stage duels are a game, but the hunger is real. The applause is real. The few coins you earn are real. You are surviving, even thriving, even thriving, even thriving, in a way you never could have imagined. But you can feel a growing distance between you. You are both looking at the horizon, but you are beginning to see different things there. For him, this is a temporary means to an end. For you, it is the discovery of a new self, a self that commands the stage. And you are starting to realize that the small stages of provincial towns might not be big enough for you. The rhythm of the road becomes a familiar, if grueling, song. Town performance, collection, departure. You and Desi Aranis have honed your act into a well-oiled machine for extracting small change from bored provincials. But the satisfaction is starting to wear thin. The faces in the crowds blur into one another. The taverns all have the same smell of stale wine and wood smoke. You are earning enough to eat, but you are creatively starving. The thrill of defeating a local lout in a staged duel has faded. It's too easy. There is no challenge, no art. You feel a familiar restlessness creeping back in, the same feeling that drove you from Versailles. Your journey has been a slow, meandering drift southwards, and finally, you see it on the horizon, Marseille. It's not just another town. It's a city, a true metropolis, a gateway to the Mediterranean, a chaotic, vibrant jumble of sailors, merchants, immigrants, and aristocrats. The air itself feels different here, thick with the scent of salt, spices, and possibility. Unlike the sleepy inland towns, Marseille is a city that never sleeps. It's loud, dirty, and dangerous, but it crackles with energy. It is a place where a person can get lost, or if they are clever and lucky, a place where they can reinvent themselves completely. As you and Des Ernest walk through the bustling streets of the old port, you feel a sense of awe. This is a world away from the manicured perfection of Versailles and the dreary sameness of the provinces. Here, fortunes are made and lost in a single day. Reputations are fluid. Who you were yesterday matters less than who you can convince people you are today. For S.C.R. Annis, this is the end of the line. It's a large enough city to disappear in, to lie low until the heat from his Parisian duel dies down. For you, it feels like the beginning. You find cheap lodgings in a crowded, noisy part of the city. The traveling sword and song show, which seemed so novel in the small towns, feels amateurish and quaint here. Marseille has real theaters, real performers. The competition is fierce. Your first attempts to perform in the city squares are met with indifference. The crowds are jaded, harder to impress. They've seen it all before. The partnership with S.C. Aranis begins to fray at the seams. The shared danger and adventure that bound you together on the road is gone, replaced by the mundane realities of city life. The love affair, which had long ago cooled into a professional alliance, now dissolves completely. There's no dramatic breakup, no tearful farewell. It's more of a quiet, mutual drifting apart. Your paths have diverged. He is looking for anonymity, a quiet life under the radar. You are looking for a stage, and you want the brightest spotlight you can find. One day, you are walking through the city alone, feeling adrift, when you hear music. It's not the simple folk tune of a street musician. It's something else entirely. It's a powerful, soaring melody, a professionally trained voice ringing out from an open window. You follow the sound, drawn by a curiosity you can't quite name. It leads you to a grand building, more impressive than any you've seen since you left Versailles. A sign outside reads Academy Royal de Musique, but everyone just calls it the Marseille Opera. You stand across the street listening. This is not the simple singing you may or may not have done for spare change in taverns. This is an art form. It's dramatic, emotional, and powerful. It's a kind of combat, a duel fought with breath and vibration instead of steel. The singers on that stage are not just making pretty noises, they are telling stories, embodying characters, commanding the attention of hundreds of people. You look at the people going in and out of the building, the costumed performers, the musicians, the haughty patrons. They have a purpose, a place in this vibrant world. A strange idea begins to form in your mind. It's an idea so audacious, so utterly preposterous that you almost laugh out loud. The question forms in your mind, what if you could be one of them? You have no formal training. Your singing, if you did any, wasn't uttered. Your entire life has been dedicated to the art of the sword, a skill that seems utterly useless in this context. And yet, the feeling is undeniable. Standing in front of the opera house, you feel the same pull you felt all those years ago when you first picked up a foil in the stables. It's the magnetic attraction of a world where skill, discipline, and performance are everything. This is a point where the historical record becomes a bit murky, colored by the legend you would become. How did you, an unknown runaway with no connections under questionable past, even get a foot in the door of a prestigious institution like the Marseille Opera? One popular version of the story claims you simply walked in one day undemanded an audition. It's a great story, perfectly in character, but likely the simplification. A more plausible theory, debated by historians, is that you sought out a local music teacher. Perhaps you used the last of your money to pay for a few lessons, to see if you had any real talent. This teacher, astounded by the raw, untrained power of your voice, would have then used his connections to arrange a proper audition. There is a fascinating little tidbit from the world of 17th century opera that puts your ambition into context. At this time, all the female roles were not always sung by women. In the Papal States in Italy, for instance, women were forbidden from singing on stage, so the female roles were sung by castrati, men who had been surgically altered as boys to preserve their high singing voices. While this wasn't the case in France, the world of opera was still a strange and highly specialized profession. It was something one simply decided to do. It required years of rigorous, dedicated training. Your desire to just walk in off the street was, in its own way, as rebellious as drawing your sword in a duel. Whatever the exact method, you find yourself on the threshold of a new stage. The dusty circle in a town square is about to be replaced by the footlights of the opera. You are about to trade your rapier for a libretto. And you will discover to your own astonishment that your voice is an even more formidable weapon than your sword. Stepping onto the bare, dusty stage of the Marseille Opera for your audition is more intimidating than facing a man with a drawn sword. Out there in the gloom of the empty theatre sit a few shadowy figures, the director of the opera, a famous singer named Pierre Gaultier, and perhaps a musician or two. They are the arbiters of your fate, their expressions hidden in the dim light. In a duel, you know the rules, you know your opponent. Here, the rules are a mystery, and your opponent is the vast, crushing silence of the auditorium. You have no sheet music, no carefully prepared aria from a famous opera. You have only the raw instrument of your voice and the ironclad confidence that has carried you this far. You must choose what to sing. The historical accounts don't record the specific song, but it was likely something simple that you knew by heart, perhaps one of the popular ballads you'd heard at court, or a folk song you'd learned on the road. It wasn't the song that mattered. You take a breath and you sing. And the voice that comes out of you is a shock, most of all to yourself. It's not the pleasant, light voice of a girl singing in a parlor. It is a deep, powerful, and resonant sound, and still is the lowest and rarest female vocal range. In an era that often prized the high, delicate soprano voice, a true contralto was a dramatic and unusual instrument. It has a darkness to it, a richness and a weight that can convey incredible emotion, not with practiced artifice, but with pure, untrained power. It is the vocal equivalent of your fencing style, direct, unadorned, and devastatingly effective. In the darkness, the shadowy figures lean forward. They have heard technically perfect singers. They have heard singers with years of training. But this is something else. This is a voice that can command attention, a voice that can tell stories. When you finish, the silence that returns is different. It's no longer empty. It's full of potential. Pierre Gaultier, the director, is a shrewd businessman as well as an artist. He sees what he has in front of him. A beautiful young woman with a once-in-a-generation voice and a story that is already the stuff of local whispers. She's not just a singer, she's a spectacle. He agrees to take you on. Your life transforms. You are given a small stipend, a room, and, most importantly, a teacher. You are thrown into a rigorous training regimen. The discipline you learned in the fencing yard now serves you well. Learning to control your breath is not so different from controlling your blade. The long hours of practice, the endless repetition of scales and exercises, the memorization of music and libretti, none of it de-ants you. You attack your new craft with the same ferocious determination you applied to swordsmanship. You learn to read music, to sight sing, to move on stage. You discover that opera is not just singing, it's acting. It's about creating a character, conveying rage, love, despair, and triumph. It's a physical as well as a vocal performance. And you are a natural. Your unladylike upbringing, your lack of conventional female inhibition, is a huge advantage. You are not afraid to be loud, to be fierce, to take up space on the stage. While other actresses might gesture gracefully, you command the stage with your entire body. It's here we encounter a weird little fact about 17th century French opera. The style of singing was very different from the Italian opera that would later dominate. French opera, especially under the influence of its founder, Jean-Baptiste Lully, placed a huge emphasis on the clarity of the words. It was called tragedy and music, and it was as much about the drama and the poetry as the melody. The singing style was more declamatory, almost like a heightened form of speech. This was perfect for you. You were a storyteller by nature. You didn't just sing the notes, you inhabited the words, spitting out insults and whispering declarations of love with equal conviction. Your debut is in a minor role, a test to see how you handle a real audience. The moment you step onto the lit stage, in full costume and makeup, you feel a jolt of recognition. This is it. This is the arena you were born for. The hundreds of expectant faces in the audience are not a threat. They are a challenge. And you meet it. Even in a small role, you are magnetic. Your voice, your presence, it's impossible to ignore. Soon, you are given larger roles. You become a local celebrity. The people of Marseille are fascinated by you. They've heard the rumors, the girl who ran away from Versailles, the swordswoman who travels in men's clothing. And now, here she is, on the stage of their opera, transforming into goddesses and queens. Her powerful voice filling the theater. You are an irresistible combination of scandal and talent. You are earning a real salary now. You can afford a nice apartment, good food, fine clothes, though you still prefer your breeches for everyday wear. You have left the hand-to-mouth existence of the road behind. You have found your stage. You have proven that you can succeed on your own terms in a world that has no category for a woman like you. You have a career, you have fame. You have financial independence. And now, with your life finally stable, you are about to discover that the heart is a far more complicated and chaotic battlefield than any stage or dueling ground. Life in Marseille has settled into a rhythm that is, for the first time, both exciting and stable. You are a rising star at the opera, your name whispered in the cafes and salons of the city. You have money in your pocket and a purpose that fills your days. The memory of the muddy roads and flea bitinians is beginning to fade, replaced by the scent of stage makeup and the roar of an appreciative crowd. You have successfully reinvented yourself. You are no longer Julie the runaway, or Julie the street performer. You are La Maupin, the astonishing new voice of the Marseille opera. Your off-stage life, however, remains as unconventional as ever. You move through the city with the same confidence you show on stage. You frequent taverns and fencing halls, places where other actresses would never dare to set foot. You drink with sailors and gamble with merchants. You are not interested in the polite, constrained world of high society. You are drawn to authenticity, to people who are not performing a part, or at least to people who are honest about the parts they are performing. And it is in this vibrant, messy world of Marseille that you meet her. Her name is not recorded with certainty in most historical accounts. She is usually just referred to as the daughter of a merchant from Marseille. Let's call her Cecilia. You meet her at some public event, perhaps a concert or a city festival. She is beautiful, of course, but it's more than that. She has a quiet intensity, a spark of intelligence in her eyes that you recognize. She is not like the other young women you see, the ones whose only ambition is a good marriage, a fascination with your world, which is so alien to her own. The attraction is immediate and mutual. It's an electric current that passes between you in a crowded room. But this is different from the headlong, youthful passion you had for Serene. That was an alliance born of rebellion and a shared desire for escape. This is something deeper, more personal. It's a meeting of minds, a recognition of a kindred spirit trapped in a more conventional life. Your courtship, if you can call it that, is conducted in stolen moments. You meet in quiet gardens, in the back rooms of shops. You talk for hours. You tell her about your life, about the stables at Versailles, the duels on the road, the thrill of the stage. She listens mesmerized. She is living vicariously through you, tasting a freedom she has never been allowed to imagine for herself. She, in turn, tells you about her life, a life of quiet desperation, constrained by the expectations of her wealthy merchant family. They see her as an asset, a piece to be married off to secure a business alliance. This kind of intense, passionate relationship between women was not as unheard of in the 17th century as we might imagine. While officially condemned by church and state, what were then called particular friendships or a known, if discreet, part of the social landscape, especially in artistic and aristocratic circles. However, the line between an emotionally intense but platonic friendship and a physical, romantic love affair was a blurry one, and historians still debate the exact nature of many such relationships from this era. In your case, the chronicles of your life leave little room for doubt. This was no chaste platonic friendship. This was a love affair, passionate and all-consuming. With Cecilia, you feel a kind of emotional intimacy you have never known before. It is a connection that transcends the swashbuckling bravado of your public persona. She is not in love with Maupin, the scandalous opera singer. She is in love with Julie, and you, in turn, are utterly captivated by her. But, of course, this cannot last. You are a public scandal, and she is the sheltered daughter of a respectable family. Her parents inevitably find out about the relationship. They are horrified. Not only is their daughter involved with a woman, but she is involved with you, a low-born actress, a sword fighter, a creature of the theatre who wears men's clothing. You are everything a respectable family fears and despises. To them you are not a romantic figure. You are a predator, a corrupting influence who is leading their innocent daughter down a path of ruin and damnation. Their reaction is swift and absolute. They forbid Cecilia from ever seeing you again. They lock her in her room, and when it becomes clear that their daughter's attachment to you is not a passing fancy, they take the most drastic step available to a wealthy family in the 17th century. They decide to place her in a convent. This was a common tool for controlling unruly daughters. The convent was a respectable prison. Once inside, Cecilia would be cut off from the world. Her letters would be censored, her visitors screened. Under the stern guidance of the nuns, she would be reformed, her rebellious spirit broken, her scandalous love affair forgotten. For her family, it is the perfect solution. It solves the problem, and it does so under the pious guise of saving their daughter's soul. They send her to a nearby convent in Avignon, a city then under the direct rule of the Pope, where the authority of the Church was absolute. They believe their daughter is now safely out of your reach. They believe they have won. They have gravely, catastrophically underestimated you. The news that Cecilia has been taken to a convent in Avignon hits you not like a sadness, but like a declaration of war. Your entire life has been a battle against confinement, against the cages that society builds for people like you. The stable walls, the expectations of marriage, the poverty of the road, you have fought your way out of all of them. To you, a convent is just another cage, albeit one with holier-than-thou bars. The idea of Cecilia, your vibrant, intelligent Cecilia, locked away to have her spirit systematically crushed by prayer and penance is intolerable. It is an affront to love, to freedom, and to you personally. Her family thinks they have ended the affair. What they have actually done is hand you a challenge. And you are not a person who walks away from a challenge. Your first impulse is probably pure blind rage. You likely imagine storming the convent, sword in hand, and cutting down anyone who stands in your way. But you are not just a fighter, you are a performer and a strategist. You know that brute force will fail. A direct assault on a convent, especially in the papal territory of Avignon, is a suicidal act. You would be overwhelmed, arrested, and handed over to the Inquisition for a very short and unpleasant trial. You need a plan, a clever plan, a theatrical plan. So, you do what any sensible, level-headed person would do. You decide to become a nun. You leave the Marseille Opera, telling them you need a leave of absence for personal reasons. They are likely baffled but have learned not to question your eccentricities. You travel to Avignon, not as Maupin, the infamous opera singer, but as Julie d'Aubigny, a young woman seeking solace and a life of devotion. You present yourself at the gates of the very same convent where Cecilia is imprisoned. Your performance is flawless. You trade your breeches for a simple, modest dress. You speak in a quiet, humble voice. You tell the Mother Superior a convincing story of a worldly sinner who has seen the error of her ways and wishes to dedicate her life to God. You are, after all, a professional actress. Deceiving a few cloistered nuns is far easier than convincing a theater full of paying customers that you are a mythological queen. This is where a little-known but fascinating detail of convent life in the 17th century comes into play. Not everyone in a convent was a fully sworn nun. Many institutions accepted post-al aunts or novices, women who were on a trial period, considering a life in the cloth. They also took in boarders, wealthy women seeking a pious and secure environment. This system provided a loophole. You don't need to take lifelong vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience immediately. You just need to get through the door. Your request to join as a novice is, to the nuns, a blessing. A young woman turning her back on the temptations of the world to join their order. It's a testament to their holiness. They welcome you with open arms. You are inside. The first part of your plan is a success. Life in the convent is a shock to the system. It is a world of bells, silence, and endless prayer. The day is rigidly structured, from the pre-dawn matins to the final prayers at Compline. The food is bland, the beds are hard, the work is menial. It is the absolute antithesis of everything your life has been. The vibrant chaos of Marseille is replaced by a smothering, orderly quiet. For anyone else, it would be soul-crushing. For you, it is simply a role to be played, a costume to be worn until the final act. You are a model novice. You are pious, obedient, and hard-working. You scrub floors with a humility that astounds the older nuns. You chant the psalms with a fervent devotion. Your powerful contralto voice, once used to sing of pagan goddesses and tragic queens, now lending a surprising richness to the Gregorian chants. You quickly earn the trust of the convent's authorities. You are seen as a shining example of true repentance. And, most importantly, you find Cecilia. Your first meeting is likely in the convent garden or during a shared meal. The shock on her face, the flicker of disbelief followed by dawning, ecstatic hope. You have to remain composed, of course. You are surrounded by 100 pairs of watchful eyes. You cannot run into each other's arms. Your reunion is conducted in the same way your courtship was, in stolen glances, in whispered words disguised as prayer, in secret notes passed in the pages of a missal. You reassure her. You tell her you are not here to join her in a life of piety. You are here to break her out. Hope which had been systematically starved out of her. Reignites like a flare, reignites like a flame. Now you are both on the inside, but you are still trapped. You need a way out. And not just a simple escape over a wall in the middle of the night. That would be too risky. They would raise the alarm immediately, and you would be hunted down within a day. You need a distraction, a big one. You need a plan so audacious, so unthinkable, that no one would ever suspect it. You wander the quiet stone corridors of the convent, observing the routines, the guards, the layout. A finely tuned instrument of strategy and theatricality begins to assemble the pieces of your masterpiece. And it is a masterpiece of madness and fire. The plan that forms in your mind is not just an escape plan. It's a piece of theater. It requires props, timing, and a dramatic flair that could only be conceived by an opera singer who moonlights as a sword fighter. You are no longer just a rescuer. You are a writer, director, and lead actor in a very dark, very sacrilegious comedy. Your first requirement is a body. This is, without question, the most ghoulish and debated part of your story. It's so outrageous that for centuries, many historians dismissed it as a fabrication, a smear designed to make you seem monstrous, but the court records, which we'll get to later, are quite specific. You needed a corpse. Why? Because you weren't just planning to escape. You were planning to fake Cecilia's death. An escapee would be hunted. A dead nun would be mourned and forgotten. So, how does one acquire a body in a convent? You wait. Convents, like any other closed community in the 17th century, were susceptible to illness. The sanitation was poor, medical knowledge was primitive, and people died. You, the model novice, spend time in the infirmary, tending to the sick. It's part of your performance of piety, but you are also gathering intelligence. You are waiting for an opportunity. The opportunity arrives in the form of an elderly nun who passes away from natural causes. The convent goes into a period of mourning. Her body is laid out in her cell, awaiting burial the next day. This is your moment. The key prop is now available. Under the cover of night, while the other nuns are asleep or at prayer, you and Cecilia put your plan into motion. The two of you creep through the silent, cold stone corridors of the convent. Your destination, the cell of the deceased nun. This is the point of no return. The act you are about to commit is not just grave robbing, it is a profound act of sacrilege. Tampering with the body of a consecrated nun was a crime that the church punished with extreme prejudice. You don't hesitate. You enter the cell. By the faint light of a smuggled candle, you perform your grim task. You lift the frail, cold body of the dead nun from her cot. It's a moment that requires an iron will and a stomach to match. You carry her, together with Cecilia, through the sleeping convent. Your destination, Cecilia's own cell. You place the corpse in Cecilia's bed and pull the covers up, arranging the body to look as if she is sleeping. Step 1 is complete. The stage is set. Now for the distraction. An escape over the wall is too simple, too easy to discover. You need something that will create panic, chaos, and most importantly, destroy the evidence. You need a fire. You gather flammable materials, straw from mattresses, oil from maps, perhaps even pages torn from Bibles, an irony that would surely not be lost on you. You place them in Cecilia's cell, around the bed where the dead nun now lies. You are not just setting a fire, you are creating a funeral pyre. You are staging a scene of tragic, accidental death. You and Cecilia slip away from the cell, moving towards a pre-planned escape route, probably a small, unguarded door or a low section of the garden wall. Then, just before you leave, you light the fire. The flames catch quickly. The dry strand would ignite, and the cell is engulfed in a horrifying blaze. The fire spreads, smoke billowing down the stone hallways, the smell of burning thick and acrid. The convent bells begin to ring, but this time they are not calling the nuns to prayer. They are ringing in panic, a frantic, clanging alarm that shatters the holy silence. Nuns, woken from their sleep, pour into the corridors in a state of confusion and terror. Their rigid, orderly world has descended into chaos. They see the smoke, the flames pouring from the cell of the merchant's daughter. They try to fight the fire with buckets of water, but it's too late. The cell is an inferno. Amidst the screaming, the smoke, and the frantic ringing of bells, you and Cecilia slip over the wall and disappear into the darkness of the Avignon night. You have done it. You have pulled off the impossible. The next morning, the fire is out. The nuns, shaken and grieving, sift through the charred remains of the cell. They find what they expect to find, a burned body in the bed. It is unrecognizable, of course, burned beyond identification. But whose cell was it? Cecilia's. Who is missing from the roll call? The conclusion is obvious, tragic, and completely wrong. The poor, troubled girl from Marseille, perhaps in a fit of despair, has met a terrible end. They mourn her. Most importantly, they do not look for her. You have given your lover a new life by staging her death. It is a plan of breathtaking audacity, a perfect crime, or so you think. You have accounted for the nuns, for the local authorities, for Cecilia's family. But you have forgotten that fire, even a holy one, attracts attention. And you have forgotten that Cecilia's family is wealthy and influential. They are not going to accept the story of a tragic accident without asking a few questions. Your masterpiece of arson and resurrection is about to have some very serious, then very angry critics. You and Cecilia are free, adrift in the French countryside once more. But this is not a romantic escape. It's a desperate flight. The elation of your brilliantly executed plan is quickly replaced by the cold, gnawing anxiety of being fugitives. You have not just broken a few rules, you have committed a litany of capital crimes: arson, grave desecration, abduction, because in the eyes of the law and her family, Cecilia did not leave willingly, she was stolen. You have declared war on the church and the establishment, and now you must face the consequences. You are on the run, but where do you go? Returning to Marseille is out of the question. You are a known personality there, and Cecilia would be recognized. You need to disappear, to melt into the vast, anonymous landscape of rural France. You likely cut Cecilia's hair, dress her in men's clothing, just as you wear. You become two young men on the road, a disguise that offers a thin layer of protection. For Cecilia, this is a terrifying and exhilarating new reality. Perfumed world of her upbringing is gone, replaced by the grit and grime of life as an outlaw. She is completely dependent on you, on your wits and your sword art. The two of you likely live this way for some time, perhaps a few weeks, maybe even a few months. The historical record of this period is scanned, pieced together from later testimonies. It's a life of constant movement, never staying in one place for more than a night or two, always looking over your shoulder. Every stranger on the road is a potential threat, every church bell a possible alarm. The love that drove you to such extreme measures is now being tested in the crucible of constant fear. Meanwhile, back in Avignon, your perfect crime is unraveling. Cecilia's family is not content with the convent's explanation. A healthy young woman doesn't just die in a sudden, convenient fire. They are wealthy merchants, accustomed to getting answers. They apply pressure. They demand a proper investigation. The authorities, under the jurisdiction of the papacy, begin to dig deeper. They question the nuns more thoroughly. Perhaps one of the sisters recalls seeing the two of you whispering in the garden. Maybe the Mother Superior remembers your strangely powerful singing voice and your oddly confident demeanor, things that seemed pious at the time but now look suspicious in retrospect. And crucially, they take a closer look at the body. Even a badly burned corpse can yield clues to a trained medical examiner of the day. They might determine that the bones belong to a much older woman. The story starts to fall apart. And then someone remembers you. Julie d'Aubigny, also known as Maupin, the scandalous opera singer from Marseille who was known to be involved with the merchant's daughter. The timing of your arrival as a novice, and your subsequent disappearance on the night of the fire, is too much of a coincidence. The narrative shifts. This wasn't a tragic accident. This was a conspiracy. The full weight of the law comes crashing down. A tribunal is convened in Avignon to try the case. You and Cecilia are not there, of course. You are tried in absentia, in your absence. This was a common practice for fugitives. The court hears the evidence, the desecrated grave, the testimony of the nuns, the suspicions of the family. The picture they paint is of a diabolical plot, masterminded by depraved seductors who lured an innocent girl from a holy life. The verdict is a foregone conclusion. You and your accomplice, for Cecilia is now deemed a willing participant, are found guilty. Guilty of kidnapping, of body snatching, of arson against a holy place. The sentence is read out in the stone courtroom, a sentence designed to reflect the horror of your crimes. You are both sentenced to be burned at the stake. This is a particularly significant sentence. Burning was a punishment reserved for the most heinous offenses, especially those that challenged the authority of the church, heresy, witchcraft, and extreme sacrilege. It was a punishment of purification, designed not just to kill the body but to annihilate the soul. It was the law's most terrifying and final statement. The sentence is posted in towns and cities across the south of France. You are now officially declared outlaws, enemies of God and the state. There is a price on your head. You are no longer just running. You are being actively hunted. How do you find out about the sentence? Perhaps you see a wanted poster in a town square, your own name and description staring back at you. Or maybe you overhear whispers in a tavern, people talking about the shocking case of the opera singer who burned down a convent. The news hits you with the force of a physical blow. It's one thing to be on the run. It's another to know that the official, desired outcome of your story is for you to be tied to a post and set on fire. For Cecilia, this is likely the breaking point. The adventure has become a nightmare from which there is no waking up. The love that seemed worth defying the world for now comes with a death sentence. The relationship, forged in secrecy and reborn in fire, cannot survive this. The exact nature of your separation is unknown. Was it a tearful farewell, a pragmatic decision that you would both be safer apart? Or did she simply leave one morning, unable to face the life of a condemned fugitive any longer? What is known is that she eventually, somehow, returns to her family, likely throwing herself on their mercy, blaming you for everything. Her family, eager to salvage their reputation, would have pulled strings, paid fines, and quietly had the sentence against her annulled. Her part in the story ends there. She disappears back into the respectable world, forever marked by her brief, fiery taste of freedom. And you are left alone, hunted, condemned, and heartbroken. Your grand romantic gesture has ended in disaster. You are at the absolute nadir of your fortunes. You have only one option left. It is a desperate, almost suicidal gamble. You must go to the one place where you are most likely to be recognized and arrested. You must go to Paris. The road to Paris is a long and lonely one. The vibrant, rebellious energy that carried you south with Sir Anis is gone. The passionate determination that fueled your rescue of Cecilia has curdled into a grim, solitary resolve. You are no longer running toward something. You are running from the fire, from a sentence that is more than just a threat. It's a public declaration that you are a monster. Every campfire looks like a pyre. Every church spire seems to mock you. Traveling alone is different. It's harder. You have no one to watch your back, no one to share the burden of fear. But it is also simpler. You are a smaller target, more able to blend in. You are a master of disguise by now. You can be a swaggering young man in one town, a quiet, unassuming woman in the next. You use your acting skills not for applause but for survival. Why Paris? It seems like madness. It's the heart of the kingdom, the center of the very power that has condemned you. The king's justice is strongest here, but it is also the only place you can go. In the provinces, you are just a name on a wanted poster, a faceless criminal. In Paris, you have a history. You have a connection, however tenuous, to the court. Your only hope for survival is to undo the sentence. And only one person in all of France has the power to do that, King Louis XVI. Your plan is to seek a royal pardon. This was a feature of the French legal system, an expression of the king's absolute power. The king was the ultimate source of all justice, and therefore he could also be the source of all mercy. He could, with a stroke of a pen, overturn the ruling of any court in the land. But getting a pardon was not easy. It required influence, connections, and a very good reason. You have none of those. What you have is your father. You arrive in Paris a changed person. You are harder, leaner, and your eyes hold a wariness that wasn't there before. You make your way back to the world of your childhood, Versailles. You don't march in through the front gates. You slip in through the familiar back ways, to the world of the stables and the servants. You find your father, Gaston d'Aubigny. Imagine that reunion. He has likely heard the stories. The rumors would have traveled from Avignon to Paris, passed along by letter and gossip, growing more sensational with each telling. He has heard that his daughter, the strange, sword-wielding girl he indulged, is now a convicted arsonist and kidnapper with a death sentence on her head. He is a man of order and reputation, a secretary to a powerful count. Your actions are a source of profound shame and terror for him. What do you say to him? Do you apologize? Do you try to explain the logic of love and fire? Or do you simply stand before him, his prodigal daughter, a problem that has returned home? The chronicles of your life, which focus so much on your public exploits, are silent on these private moments. But we can surmise the outcome. Your father, whatever his personal feelings of anger or disappointment, does not abandon you. He is your only ally. He still has his position, his connection to the Comte d'Armagnac, the king's master of the horse. This is your only leverage. The Comte is one of the great nobles of France, a man who has the king's ear. If he can be persuaded to intervene on your behalf, you might have a chance. The process of seeking a pardon was a complex bureaucratic dance. It involved submitting petitions, gathering testimonials, and navigating a maze of court officials. Your father likely spends weeks, maybe months, engaged in this delicate work. He would have to frame your story in the most sympathetic light possible. This is where the narrative of your crime begins to be officially rewritten. This is a fascinating aspect of legal history, the art of the plea. Your father's petition would have skillfully downplayed your role. Cecilia was not abducted. She was a foolish girl who ran away. The fire was not a malicious act of arson against the church. It was a youthful indiscretion, a folly that got out of hand. The theft of the nun's body, that part was probably best left as vague as possible. The key legal argument, however, and a point of much debate among legal historians, is that the sentence itself was technically invalid. You were a minor when the crime was committed, under the age of 25, which was the age of majority in some parts of France. Furthermore, the court in Avignon, being a papal court, did not have proper jurisdiction over a French citizen in this specific manner without the king's consent. And, crucially, you were sentenced for defying a man's authority over his family, but you did so as a woman. The law was written by men for men. It had no proper framework for a case like yours. It was legally weird. Your father argues that the sentence of death by fire is wildly disproportionate. He begs the Comte d'Armagnac to present this view to the king. The Comte, perhaps out of loyalty to his long-serving secretary, or perhaps because he has a fondness for you, the strange girl who grew up in his stables, agree. He chooses his moment carefully. He speaks to King Louis at a private, informal occasion. He presents the case not as a grave matter of state, but as the unfortunate story of a hot-headed, talented, but foolish young woman who got into trouble over a love affair. He frames you not as a monster, but as a character from a romance, albeit a particularly chaotic one. King Louis XIV, the Sun King, listens. He is a man who understands human passion, and he has a famous appreciation for the female sex. He is the law. The sentence from a provincial church court is an annoyance, a challenge to his ultimate authority. The story, as the Comte tells it, is absurd, shocking, but also amusing. A girl who fights duels and sets fire to a convent for love. It's the kind of story that will be told at court for weeks. In an act of supreme royal power and, perhaps, a touch of personal amusement, the king grants the pardon. He simply sets the sentence aside. Just like that. The pyre that has been haunting your steps for months is extinguished by a royal decree. You are no longer a condemned criminal. You are free. You have faced down the church and won. But your life is in ruins. You have no career, no money, and a reputation that is now legendary for all the wrong reasons. You are pardoned, but you are still an outcast. You need to rebuild your life from the ashes of your last adventure. And in Paris there is only one place to do that, the grandest stage of them all. The royal pardon is a golden ticket, but it doesn't magically erase your past. You are no longer a condemned felon, but you are still Julie d'Orbigny, the woman who burned down a convent. Your name is a cocktail of scandal and rumor, whispered in the gilded salons of Paris. In a city that thrives on gossip, you are the main course. This kind of reputation can open some doors and slam others shut. You are infamous. Now, you need to become famous for the right reason. You are back in the city, where talent is a currency as valuable as gold, but the competition is brutal. Your time in the Marseille Opera now seems like a provincial tryout. This is Paris, and the heart of the Parisian stage is the Académie Royale de Musique, known to everyone simply as the opera. Housed at the time in the Théâtre du Palais Royal, it was the personal project of the king, the pinnacle of French culture, and the most prestigious, exclusive, and unforgiving musical institution in the world. Getting an audition here is not a matter of simply walking in off the street, as you might have done in Marseille. The Paris Opera is a closed shop, a nest of nepotism, rivalries, and fiercely guarded artistic standards. The singers are the best in the kingdom, trained for years, many of them students of the great Jean-Baptiste Lully, the founder of French opera, whose ghost still loomed over the institution. Your connection to the Comte d'Armagnac, the man who secured your pardon, is once again your only key. He is a patron of the arts, a man of immense influence. A quiet word from him to the opera's administration is enough to get you a chance. An audition is granted. It is not a favor, it is a curiosity. The directors of the opera are likely intrigued. They have heard the wild stories. Now they want to see the creature at the heart of them. They want to hear if the voice is as legendary as the rap sheet. You stand on the stage of the Palais Royal, the same stage where the great Molière premiered his plays, where Lully himself had conducted his grand productions. The ghosts of French artistic genius are all around you. In the darkened theatre sit the men who will decide your future. Among them is Jean-Nicolas de Francine, Lully's own son-in-law and the current director. This is the big lead. What do you sing? This time you have to show them more than just raw power. You have to show them art control, and an understanding of the specific, highly codified style of French tragedy and music. You likely choose an aria from one of Lully's own operas, the piece that is famous and fiendishly difficult. It's a gamble. Singing the master's work for his successors is either a tribute or an act of supreme arrogance. For you, it's the only choice. You begin to sing, and the voice that silenced the skeptics in Marseille now echoes through the hallowed space of the Paris Opera. It is the same deep, powerful contralto, but it is no longer an untamed force of nature. Your time in Marseille, brief as it was, gave you training, discipline. You have learned to harness your power, to color your notes with emotion, to spin a phrase with elegance. You are not just singing the notes, you are interpreting the drama, just as Lully demanded. You are a singing actress, and that is exactly what they are looking for. There's a wonderful, though possibly embellished, anecdote about this audition. The story goes that after you finished your piece, a stunned silence fell over the theatre. One of the directors, skeptical and trying to find a flaw, asked you to sight read a new, unfamiliar piece of music that was on the music stand. This was a common but difficult test. He expected you to stumble. Instead, you picked up the sheet music, studied it for a moment, and then sang it. Perfectly. You didn't just sing the notes. You performed it, imbuing the unfamiliar music with instant character and drama. You proved you weren't just a voice. You were a musician, a quick study with an ironclad command of your craft. But debate among the directors is likely heated. Do they dare hire you? You are a public relations nightmare. A convicted though pardoned arsonist, a known duelist, a woman of loose morals who wears men's clothing. Hiring you would be a scandal. But that voice, and that stage presence, in the cutthroat world of Parisian theatre, scandal sells tickets. A beautiful, dangerous singer with a voice from heaven and a past from hell. She's not a liability, she's a marketing campaign. The decision is made. They will take the risk. You are hired. You are given a contract, a small role to start, and a chance to prove that you are more than just your reputation. You have done it. Against all odds, you have clawed your way back from a death sentence to a position at the most famous opera house in the world. You have found your stage again. But you are entering a world of intense professional rivalries, jealous lovers, and strict rules of conduct. It is a world where a single misstep can end a career. And you are a person who doesn't just misstep. You leap sword in hand into the heart of trouble. Your time at the Paris Opera will not be a quiet, distinguished career. It will be a series of brilliant performances punctuated by backstage brawls, public scandals, and at least one more royal pardon. The curtain is about to rise on the most spectacular act of your life. Your first appearance on the stage of the Paris Opera is in the role of Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, in a revival of Lully and Queen Altesse opera Cadmerset Hermione. The casting could not have been more perfect. A warrior goddess, a role that allows you to carry a spear and wear a helmet, a character of immense power and authority. It's as if the part were written for you. The night of your debut, the theatre is buzzing. The gossip has done its work. Everyone in Paris, from the highest aristocrats in their private boxes to the boisterous common folk in the pit, is there to see La Maupin. They are not just coming for the opera, they are coming for the spectacle. They want to see the woman who tamed a fencing master, burned down a convent, and stared down a death sentence. They are expecting a curiosity, a freak show. You walk onto the stage, and the hush falls over the audience. You are striking, tall, confident, and utterly devoid of the coy, mannered femininity of the other actresses. You don't ask for their attention, you command it. And then you open your mouth to sing, whatever they were expecting. It wasn't this. The voice that fills the theatre is not just powerful, it is beautiful, a dark, rich velvet that can be both menacing and heartbreakingly tender. You don't just sing the role of Athena, you embody her. When you sing of war, there is steel in your voice. When you sing of wisdom, there is a profound gravity. The audience is stunned into submission. They came to see a scandal. They are witnessing the birth of a star. By the end of the performance, you have conquered Paris. The applause is thunderous, genuine. You are no longer just the sum of your sordid rumors. You are La Maupin, the prima donna, the toast of the opera. Your salary is increased. You are given leading roles in every new production. You sing in the great operas of the day, Lully's Armide, Charpentier's Midi, Des Arches Essai. You become one of the most famous and beloved performers in France. Your life off stage is just as dramatic. You embrace your celebrity with gusto. You earn a fortune and you spend it just as quickly on fine clothes, both gowns and breeches, lavish parties, and gambling. You have an insatiable appetite for life, for pleasure, for every experience the city has to offer. You are a whirlwind of energy, and Paris is fascinated by you. Your love life is a constant source of speculation and scandal. You have affairs with both men and women, sometimes simultaneously. You are openly and unapologetically yourself in a way that is both shocking and thrilling to the society of the time. This is where we encounter a slightly confusing but important piece of your history, your name. You are known to history as La Maupin, which was the name of your husband. At some point, either just before or just after your adventures in the south, your father had arranged a marriage for you to a man named Maupin from a provincial town. The marriage seems to have been purely a matter of convenience. Your new husband was promptly given an administrative job in the south of France, and you stayed in Paris. You used his name, which gave you the respectable title of Madame, but you did not use the husband. Whether you ever saw him again is a point of historical debate. It was a classic arrangement of the era, a marriage in name only that provided a veneer of social respectability while allowing both parties to live their lives as they pleased. One of the most curious, unwell-documented facts about your time at the opera is your penchant for fighting. You never lost the skills you learned in the stables. The backstage of the opera was a hotbed of intrigue and jealousy, but with you, these disputes often escalated beyond whispered insults. On more than one occasion, you settled a professional disagreement with a male colleague by challenging him to a duel. According to one story, a singer who was bothering one of your female friends found himself cornered by you in a hallway. You caned him soundly, and then took his watch and snuff box as trophies. Another, more famous incident involved the star tenor, Louis Scola du Mesny. He was a notorious drunkard and had insulted one of the female singers. You confronted him, but he refused to fight a woman. So, you found him in a public square, beat him with a cane, and took his watch. When he complained to his friends about being robbed by thieves, you calmly pulled his watch out of your pocket and told him that if he ever bothered the women of the opera again, you would come back for the rest of his belongings. You were, in essence, the self-appointed and terrifying shop steward for the female performers of the Paris Opera. You created a bubble of respect around them that had never existed before. Men learned very quickly that harassing an actress or a dancer at the opera might result in a very public and very painful humiliation at your hands. You are the queen of the Parisian stage, adored by the public, feared by your colleagues. You have fame, wealth, and the freedom to live exactly as you choose. You have stared down the law, conquered the most demanding audience in the world, and carved out a life on your own terms. But your talent for chaos is undiminished. Your greatest, most legendary scandal is still to come. It will involve a royal ball, 3 duels, and another, even more personal, appeal to the king's sense of humor. The fame you've achieved is a strange and powerful shield. As the darling of the Paris Opera, you are granted a level of social freedom that is denied to almost every other woman in France. You are an artist, a creature of the stage, and society, while clutching its pearls, allows its artists a certain degree of eccentricity. You test the limits of this freedom at every opportunity. The grandest stage for this test is about to present itself. A magnificent costume ball held at the Palais Royal, the very building that houses the opera, in honor of the king's brother, Philippe, Duke of Orleans. This is not just any party. It is one of the premier social events of the season. The cream of French aristocracy is in attendance, a glittering sea of silk, jewels, and powdered wigs. The air is thick with perfume, political intrigue, and the delicate dance of courtly flirtation. You, as a leading member of the opera, are invited, and you decide to make an entrance. You do not arrive in a lavish gown dripping with diamonds. That would be too predictable. Instead, you attend the ball dressed as a man. This is not the rough, practical garb of your traveling days. This is the height of male fashion, a tailored velvet coat, lace at the collar and cuffs, silk stockings, a dress sword at your hip, and your hair artfully styled. You are not just cross-dressing, you are making a statement. You are making a statement. You look, by all accounts, magnificent. You are so convincing and so handsome that you turn more heads than any of the diamond-encrusted duchesses. Your arrival causes an immediate stir. People whisper behind their fans, wondering if that is Maupin. The men are intrigued and a little confused. The women are a mixture of shocked, amused, and, in many cases, utterly charmed. You move through the ballroom with an easy, confident swagger, a stark contrast to the rigid, formal etiquette of the aristocrats around you. You are not just attending the ball, you are putting on a performance, and the entire nobility of France is your audience. You spend the first part of the evening observing, a predator in a flock of peacocks. Your eyes scan the crowd, and you spot a young woman. She is one of the most beautiful and talked about debutantes of the season, surrounded by a country of fawning young noblemen. She looks bored, trapped by the attentions of her vapid admirers. Your eyes meet across the crowded room. There is a spark of mutual interest, a shared flicker of rebellious amusement. You decide to liven things up. With a theatrical flair, you stride across the ballroom floor. You bow deeply before the young woman, ignoring the glares from her 3 most persistent suitors, a viscount, a count, and a marquis. You engage her in witty, charming conversation. You are more interesting, more daring, and more sophisticated than any of the young fops vying for her attention. She is clearly enchanted. You are a breath of fresh, dangerous air in the stifling atmosphere of the court. You ask her to dance. She accepts, much to the fury of her male entourage. You lead her through a minuet, your movements as graceful and precise as your swordplay. The other dancers on the floor give you a wide berth, clearing a space as if for a theatrical performance. All eyes are on you. And then, at the conclusion of the dance, you do something that shatters the fragile etiquette of the evening into a million pieces. You lean in and, in full view of the entire royal court, you kiss her. It's not a chaste, polite peck on the cheek. It is a real, lingering kiss, a gesture of unambiguous desire. The ballroom falls into a stunned, absolute silence. You could hear a diamond drop. The music grinds to a halt. For a moment, nobody moves. They are simply trying to process the sheer audacity of what they have just witnessed. You have taken the unspoken, subtle game of courtly flirtation and turned it into a public, undeniable act of passion. And you have done it with another woman while dressed as a man at a royal ball. It is a scandal of epic proportions. The first to react are the three suitors. Their faces are masks of apoplectic rage. You have not just stolen the attention of their desired lady, you have publicly humiliated them. You have shown them up in front of their entire world. Their honor, that fragile and all-important commodity of the 17th century nobleman, has been grievously insulted. The Viscount, sputtering with fury, steps forward. He confronts you, his hand on the hilt of his own dress sword. He hisses that you will answer for this, sir. You don't flinch. You don't apologize. You simply smile, a slow, dangerous smile. You reply calmly that of course you will, and you would be delighted. Outside. You turn and walk towards the exit, not with the hurried gait of someone fleeing the scene, but with the deliberate pace of someone heading to an appointment. The crowd parts before you like the Red Sea. You have thrown down a gauntlet to the entire social order, and now you have to back it up. The ball was just the overture. The opera is about to begin, and the final act will be written in steel, in a moonlit courtyard, just outside the palace walls. You step out from the glittering heat of the ballroom into the cool, dark air of the palace courtyard. The sudden quiet is a relief. The moonlight paints the cobblestones silver, a perfect, natural spotlight for the drama about to unfold. You are calm, focused. This is your world. The rules here are simpler and more honest than the ones that govern the party you just left. Behind you, the three suitors follow you out, a thunderous procession of wounded pride, the Viscount, the Count, and the Marquis. They look like a collection of angry, ruffled birds. A small crowd of curious and horrified onlookers follows at a safe distance, eager to witness the conclusion of the evening's scandal. They whisper amongst themselves, their voices hushed with anticipation. The Viscount, being the first to challenge you, is the first to fight. He draws his sword, a delicate, jewel-encrusted dress sword that is more for show than for serious combat. It is a toy. You draw your own rapier. It is a plain, practical weapon, perfectly balanced and lethally sharp. The contrast is not lost on the spectators. You salute each other formally. The Viscount, fueled by righteous fury, attacks immediately. He is a fury of aggressive, poorly aimed lunges. He has had some fencing lessons, as all noblemen do, but he is an amateur. He is fighting with his anger, not his head. You, on the other hand, are a professional. You are relaxed, your movements economical. You parry his attacks with an almost lazy ease, your blade deflecting his with a soft click, click, click. You are not even trying to attack. You are simply letting him exhaust himself, letting him see the vast, unbridgeable gulf in your skills. The Viscount grows more desperate. His movements become wilder. He is sweating, his face red with exertion and humiliation. After a particularly clumsy lunge that leaves him completely off balance, you see your opening. In a single, fluid motion, you step inside his guard, not to stab him, but to disarm him. Your blade twists, your hand moves with lightning speed, and his sword goes flying, clattering loudly on the cobblestones. The duel has lasted less than a minute. You do not kill him. That would be messy and inconvenient. Instead, you wound him, a symbolic conclusion to the fight. With a quick, precise thrust, you pierce his shoulder. It's a clean wound, not fatal, not even truly serious. But it is definitive. It is painful and it will bleed, marking him as the loser. He stumbles back, clutching his shoulder, his face a mask of shock and pain. He has been utterly and completely defeated. You don't even pause to catch your breath. You turn to the other two and ask who is next. The Count, seeing his friend so easily dispatched, is a little more cautious. He is a better fencer than the Viscount, more controlled. His attacks are more measured, but he is still no match for you. You engage him in a proper, if brief, exchange of blades. It's a conversation. His blade asks a question. Yours gives a firm, undeniable answer. You allow the fight to last a little longer, a demonstration of your superiority. Then, with the same surgical precision, you find your moment and deliver a similar wound, perhaps to his arm or his leg. He too is now out of the fight, leaning against a wall, bleeding undefeated. 2 down, 1 to go. The Marquis, the last man standing, has had time to observe. He has seen you take down both of his companions without breaking a sweat. He is pale, his aristocratic arrogance completely gone, replaced by a very real and very understandable fear. He knows he is outmatched. But honor, that strange and terrible tyrant, demands that he fight. To refuse now would be a greater humiliation than to lose. He raises his sword, his hand trembling slightly. You can see the terror in his eyes. You almost feel a flicker of pity for him. Almost. The duel with the Marquis is the shortest of all. He makes one tentative, half-hearted attack. You parry it, step forward, and simply put the point of your rapier to his throat. You don't even need to wound him. The cold steel against his skin is enough. He freezes, his eyes wide with terror. He drops his sword. It falls to the ground with a soft thud. You softly say that you believe you are finished here. You withdraw your blade, wipe it clean on a piece of lace from your cuff, and sheathe it. You have done it. In the space of perhaps 10 minutes, in a moonlit courtyard in the heart of Paris, you have fought and defeated 3 noblemen, one after the other. You stand there untouched, not even breathing heavily, while your 3 opponents are scattered around the courtyard, disarmed, wounded, and utterly humiliated. The crowd of onlookers is completely silent or struck. They have just witnessed something that should not be possible. A single person, a woman, they are all now certain, has systematically dismantled 3 men of high birth as if they were children. You turn your back on the scene of your victory. You give a small nod to the beautiful young woman who has been watching the entire spectacle from a nearby doorway with an expression of pure, unadulterated delight. Then you walk away, melting back into the shadows of the Parisian night, leaving behind a scene of chaos, a legend in the making, and a very serious legal problem. Because, as you are well aware, dueling is still a capital offense in the Kingdom of France. You have just committed a crime punishable by death 3 times in one night. You don't go home. That would be the first place they'd look. Instead, you disappear into the labyrinthine streets of Paris, finding refuge with a trusted friend, perhaps another performer from the opera. You are not panicked. You are not panicked. You have been in this situation before. A death sentence, after all, is a death sentence. Being condemned once versus 3 times over feels like a minor distinction. But this time is different. There was an audience. A very, very influential audience. You have broken one of the king's most important laws. Louis XIV had worked tirelessly to stamp out the practice of dueling among his aristocracy. He saw it as a holdover from a lawless feudal past, an assertion of private power that undermined his own absolute authority. For the king, a duel was not an act of private honor, it was an act of treason. He had issued strict edicts, and he had made examples of men who defied them. The punishment was clear and unequivocal: death. The families of the 3 wounded noblemen are screaming for justice. They are powerful, well-connected. They demand that the law be enforced. They want your head. The city guard is searching for you. A warrant is issued for your arrest. Officially, your situation is hopeless. You are a repeat offender who has committed a capital crime in the most public and flagrant way imaginable. There can be no excuse, no justification. But unofficially, something else is happening. The story reaches the king. King Louis XIV is at Versailles, far from the brawl in the palace courtyard. He is an old man now in the latter years of his long reign. He has fought wars, built palaces, and navigated decades of courtly intrigue. He is not easily shocked. An attendant with great trepidation tells him the story. Le Maupin, the opera singer he had pardoned for the convent incident, attended his brother's ball dressed as a man, kissed a debutante, and then proceeded to fight and defeat her 3 suitors in consecutive duels. The king's reaction is not what anyone expects. He doesn't fly into a rage. He doesn't demand your immediate capture and execution. According to the memoirs of the Duke of St. Simon, a famous chronicler of the court, the king laughed. He finds the whole affair utterly, irresistibly amusing. It's the sheer, unmitigated audacity of it all. The cross-dressing, the kiss, the systematic dispatching of 3 arrogant young nobles. It's a story worthy of one of Molière's comedies. It appeals to his sense of irony and his appreciation for the theatrical. He is also a pragmatist. He understands the context. 3 of his pampered, useless young aristocrats were taught in humility by one of his fiercely talented, if chaotic, opera singers. In a strange way, you have performed a service. There is also a subtle legal and social point that likely doesn't escape the king's notice. A point that legal historians love to debate. The anti-dueling laws were written to stop men from killing other men over matters of honor. But you are a woman, legally speaking, even fight a duel. The law has no category for this. You are a walking, fighting, singing legal paradox. To apply the full, harsh letter of the law to you would be to acknowledge you as an equal to the men you fought, a concept that was both socially and legally nonsensical to the 17th century mind. So the king is faced with a choice. He can uphold his own law and execute one of his most popular entertainers for an act that the entire court finds hilarious. This would make him look like a humorless tyrant. Or he can find a way to let it go. He chooses a third, unbrilliant option. He does nothing. He simply lets it be known that he is amused by the incident. He issues no new pardon because, he reasons, his previous pardon still stands. But he makes it clear that he will not be pursuing the matter of the duel. The key to his reasoning is a masterful piece of legal and social maneuvering. He declares that the law against dueling applies to men. Since you are a woman, you could not have technically participated in a duel. No crime was committed. It's a perfect face-saving piece of royal logic that simultaneously upholds his law, dismisses the complaints of the humiliated nobles, and allows you to get away with it. He effectively says to move along. There is nothing to see here. And when the king says that, everyone listens. The warrants are quietly withdrawn. The city guard stops looking for you. The families of the wounded men are forced to swallow their pride and shut up. You emerge from hiding, not as a fugitive, but as an untouchable legend. You have faced the law twice and won twice. You have been personally excused by the king for a capital crime because he finds you entertaining. You are more famous and more untouchable than ever. You return to the stage of the opera, not in disgrace, but in triumph. The audience that night gives you a standing ovation before you have even sung a note. They are not just applauding the singer. They are applauding the character, the myth, the woman who took on the entire establishment with a sword and a song and won. With the duel scandal behind you, your status as a legend is cemented. You are no longer just a singer, you are a Parisian institution, as much a landmark as the Pont Neuf for the Cathedral of Notre Dame. You are untouchable, protected by the king's amusement and the public's adoration. This new level of invincibility does not, however, make you any less chaotic. In fact, it may have encouraged you. Your life at the opera continues to be a whirlwind of artistic triumphs and personal turmoil. And your next great affair is with the one person who could almost match your own tempestuous nature. His name is Gabriel Vincent Thevenard. He is the other reigning superstar of the Paris Opera. If you are the queen, he is the king. He is a baritone of incredible talent and charisma, adored by the public and fawned over by women. He is also famously arrogant, difficult, and prone to fits of temper. He is, in essence, your male counterpart. A collision is inevitable. Your relationship does not begin with a gentle romance. It begins, as so many things in your life do, with a conflict. You are professional rivals competing for the spotlight, for the best roles, for the loudest applause, for the loudest applause. The creative tension between you on stage is electric. When you perform together, the drama is palpable, the chemistry undeniable. The chemistry undeniable. The audience can feel the friction, the push and pull of two immense egos and talents colliding. You challenge each other, you push each other, you push each other, and the result is some of the most memorable opera of the era. This professional rivalry bleeds into your personal lives. You argue backstage. You try to upstage each other during performances. It's a battle of wills, and you have both met your match. And from this fire of conflict, a strange and powerful attraction is born. You recognize in each other the same untamable spirit, the same refusal to bow to convention. You are two sides of the same rare coin. You become lovers, and your affair is as loud, passionate, and turbulent as one of the operas you star in. It is a public spectacle. You fight as fiercely as you love. According to the gossip of the time, your arguments are legendary, echoing through the halls of the opera. You are both stubborn, both proud, both unwilling to ever back down. One famous story, perhaps apocryphal but perfectly capturing the nature of your relationship, tells of an argument that began in your dressing room and spilled out onto the stage during a performance. You and Thevenard supposedly began insulting each other in the middle of a love duet, weaving your personal grievances into the lyrics of the opera, much to the confusion and eventual delight of the audience, who thought it was a particularly realistic piece of acting. There is a fascinating and rather bizarre historical tidbit that sheds light on the world you and Thevenard inhabited. The life of an opera star in 17th century Paris was a strange mix of high art and low-life celebrity. The performers were adored, but they were not considered respectable. They occupied a social grey area, somewhere between aristocrats and vagabonds. This gave them a freedom that others lacked, but it also meant their lives were under constant, intense scrutiny. Every argument, every drunken evening was fodder for the gossip columns of the day, handwritten newsletters that were circulated among the city's elite. You and Thevenard were their star reporter's favorite subject. This relationship with Thevenard, for all its chaos, marks a certain stage in your life. In Serene, you found a partner in rebellion. In Cecilia, you found a deep, romantic love. In Thevenard, you find something else, a mirror. You see your own fire, your own volatility reflected back at you. It is both intoxicating and exhausting. You are the ultimate power couple, the Beyoncé and Jay-Z of the Baroque opera world, and your drama is the greatest show in Paris. But even a fire as bright as yours can eventually burn itself out. The constant fighting, the sheer emotional exhaustion of living at such a high pitch, begins to take its toll. Your relationship, which has provided so much drama for the city of Paris, eventually ends. You and Thevenard go your separate ways, remaining colleagues at the opera, the embers of your fiery affair still glowing in memories of all who witnessed it. You have survived yet another emotional battlefield. You have loved and fought with the most famous man in your profession and emerged, as always, standing. But your capacity for finding trouble and for finding love in the most unexpected and dangerous of places is far from exhausted. Your next significant entanglement will be with a woman who is, in her own way, as formidable as you are. After the volcanic affair with Thevenard, a period of relative calm might have been expected. It was not to be. Your life does not have calm periods, it has different kinds of storms. Having explored the explosive dynamic of being with your male counterpart, you now find yourself drawn into a complex and dangerous relationship with your female one. Her name was Marilla Arachois, but she was known to the stage and to history as Mademoiselle de Maupin. Yes, you read that correctly. Her stage name was the same as your own married name. This is one of those historical coincidences that is so perfect, you'd think it was invented by a novelist. For a time, the Paris Opera had to Maupin. To avoid confusion, the public and the theatre administration often referred to you by your first name, as Julie, while Marilla Arachois was called Maupin Arachois. It's a messy, confusing situation that historians still have to untangle, and it perfectly mirrors the messy, confusing relationship the two of you would come to have. Marilla Arachois was a superstar in her own right. She was older than you, an established soprano, and had been one of the very first great divas of the French opera, a favorite of Lully himself. She was a brilliant actress and a powerful singer, famous for her dramatic interpretations of tragic heroines. She was also fiercely intelligent, notoriously difficult, and a legend for her sharp tongue and cunning backstage maneuvering. If you were a rapier, all flashing steel and direct attacks, she was a stiletto, subtle, precise, and just as deadly. Initially, you are rivals. Vicious rivals. You are the new star, the contralto who's dark of Paris. She is the established queen, the soprano who is not about to give up her throne without a fight. The opera becomes your shared battlefield. You compete for roles, for audience favor, for the attention of composers and patrons. The backstage intrigue is intense. Stories from the time tell of sabotage, of costumes being accidentally torn, of librettos going missing, of vicious rumors being spread. You are both masters of this game. Your rivalry is a source of immense entertainment for the public and immense stress for the opera's management. When you are cast in the same production, the tension is legendary. You try to outshine each other in every scene. If she holds a high note for an extra few seconds, you will answer with a low note of such power and resonance that it rattles the chandeliers. It is a duel by any other name, fought in front of a paying audience. And then, something shifts. In the heat of this intense rivalry, a strange and grudging respect begins to form. You each recognize the other's talent, the other's refusal to be a victim in a world that preys on women. You are perhaps the only two women in Paris who can truly understand each other's lives, the pressures and the triumphs of being a prima donna. Your rivalry begins to evolve into something far more complicated. The historical record on the nature of your relationship is tantalizingly vague, relying heavily on gossip and innuendo from contemporary sources. It is one of those areas where historians must read between the lines. The chronicles suggest that your animosity softened into a close friendship, but knowing you, and knowing the passionate nature of such friendships in the artistic circles of the time, it's highly likely that this rivalry transformed into a secret love affair. It would have been a relationship of equals, a chess match between two grandmasters. Unlike your affair with the innocent Cecilia or the tempestuous Thevenard, a relationship with Fierroccio would be a meeting of two powerful, calculating minds. It would be a romance conducted in whispers in dressing rooms, a secret alliance against the rest of the world. It's a captivating image, the two reigning, rival queens of the Paris Opera, sworn enemies on the stage, becoming secret lovers behind the curtain. This period of your life contains one of the stranger, more obscure tales about you. A story that highlights the casual violence of the era and your own unique code of ethics. According to one chronicle, you were walking down the street one day when you saw a man, a well-known abbot, viciously beating his servant. The servant had done something to displease him, and the abbot was caning him in the middle of the public square. The crowd just watched, unwilling to interfere with the man of the cloth. You, however, are not the type to just watch. You stride up to the abbot, interrupt the beating, and demand that he stop. The abbot, outraged that a woman, an actress, no less, would dare to question him, tells you to mind your own business. You respond by telling him that if he wants to beat someone, he should try beating you instead. The abbot, foolishly, takes you up on the offer and tries to strike you with his cane. You, of course, easily disarm him. You then proceed to give him a sound thrashing with his own cane, right there in the middle of the street to the astonishment and eventual cheers of the onlookers. You then hand the cane back to the terrified servant, give him a few coins, and walk away. This story, whether true or embellished, illustrates your deep-seated intolerance for bullies and your utter disregard for social hierarchy. An abbot, a nobleman, a famous tenor, it makes no difference to you. If you perceive an injustice, you act. Your time at the top of the opera, locked in this dance of rivalry and love with Fierroccio, is a period of professional brilliance and personal complexity. You are navigating the treacherous waters of fame, but you have found an unlikely and formidable partner. But your story is far from over. Your fame has spread beyond the borders of France, and your wild reputation has attracted the attention of a powerful foreign ruler, who will soon make you an offer that is deeply insulting. Your fame, and more specifically your infamy, has by now become an international phenomenon. Tales of the sword-fighting, convent burning, duel-winning opera singer have traveled through the diplomatic pouches and merchant caravans of Europe. You are a continental celebrity, a figure of myth and fascination. And this reputation brings you to the attention of one of the most powerful men in the Holy Roman Empire, Maximilian I Emanuel, the Elector of Bavaria. Max Emanuel was a fascinating character in his own right. He was a soldier, a statesman, and an extravagant patron of the arts. He was trying to turn his capital, Munich, into a German Versailles, a center of culture and sophistication that could rival Paris. To do this, he needed to import top talent. He wanted the best architects, the best musicians, the best artists. Then he decided he wanted the best and most notorious opera singer in Europe. He decided he wanted you. Sometime around the year 1700, an offer arrives for you from the Bavarian court. It is a generous offer. The Elector invites you to come to Munich to sing in his opera house. He offers you an enormous salary, far more than you are making in Paris, a lavish apartment, and the prestigious position of being the star of his court. It is, on the surface, an incredible opportunity, the kind of offer that most performers would trample each other to accept. So you go. Why did you decide to leave Paris at the height of your fame? The reasons are debated by historians. Perhaps you were growing bored with the opera and its rivalries. Maybe your tumultuous relationship with Léa Rochois had run its course. Perhaps the idea of a new adventure, a new country, and a fresh start was simply too appealing to resist. Or maybe it was just the money. Whatever the reason, you take another leave of absence from the Paris Opera and make the long journey east, across the Rhine to the city of Brussels, where the Elector was then holding his court while also serving as governor of the Spanish Netherlands. You arrive in Brussels, a city of splendid architecture and bustling trade. You present yourself at the Elector's court, ready to begin your new engagement, and it is here that the Elector makes his true intentions clear. The very generous offer was not just for your voice. Max Emanuel receives you, not with the professional respect due to a great artist, but with the leering familiarity of a powerful man who believes he has bought a new toy. He makes it plain that he expects you to be his mistress. Your duties are to include singing in his opera, yes, but they are also to include entertaining him in his bedchamber. He has not hired a prima donna. He believes he has purchased a concubine with a good singing voice. This is a critical miscalculation on his part. He has listened to the rumors of your loose morals, of your many affairs with men and women. He has interpreted your sexual freedom as a sign of general availability. He sees you as a woman who can be bought. He has fundamentally misunderstood who you are. You may give your heart and your body freely, but you do so on your own terms. You will not be chosen, and you certainly will not be bought, not even by one of the most powerful princes in Europe. You are insulted, deeply and furiously insulted. You are an artist, a star of the Paris Opera. You have fought and bled for your independence. The idea that this pompous foreign prince thinks he can purchase you like a prize mare is infuriating. Your reaction is swift, direct, and utterly lacking in diplomatic tact. The historical accounts of this encounter vary in the specific phrasing, but they all agree on the general sentiment. The Elector, having made his indecent proposal, presents you with a handsome purse full of gold coins, a down payment on your services. You look at the purse. You look at it and you say something to the effect of this from you. Go give it to a lackey. A prince like you does me no honor in paying me. I am accustomed to receiving such gifts for love, not for hire. And then you throw the purse of gold at his feet. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of this act is hard to overstate. You are a foreign commoner, a woman with a scandalous reputation, standing in the court of a powerful, absolute ruler. And you have just thrown his money back in his face and called him cheap. You have insulted his generosity, his power, and his manhood in a single, devastating gesture. The Elector is stunned into silence. No one has ever spoken to him this way. He is a man accustomed to absolute obedience, to people fawning over his every word. He doesn't know how to react. Anger, humiliation, and a strange sort of disbelief wore on his face. You don't wait for his reaction. You turn on your heel and stalk out of the palace, leaving the Elector of Bavaria standing amidst his stunned courtiers, with a bag of his own gold lying on the floor in front of him. This incident reveals a fascinating and often misunderstood aspect of your character. For all your disregard for convention, you have a rigid, almost puritanical code of honor. It's not the conventional honor of a 17th century lady, which is based on chastity and piety. Your honor is based on independence and integrity. Your love is not for sale. Your body is not for sale. Your talent is for hire. But you, Julie Diobigny, are not. You leave Brussels immediately. Your engagement in Bavaria is over before it has even begun. You get back on the road to Paris, once again leaving a trail of chaos and a sputtering, humiliated potentate in your wake. The story, of course, precedes you. By the time you get back to Paris, everyone has heard about how you turned down the Elector of Bavaria. Your reputation for being a fierce, independent spirit is enhanced even further. You have proven that not even a prince's ransom can make you compromise your principles. You have lost a fortune, but you have kept something far more valuable, your self-respect. You return to Paris not in disgrace, but with your legend burnished to an even brighter sheen. The story of you telling off the Elector of Bavaria becomes the latest chapter in the ever-growing saga of Maupin. You are greeted as a conquering hero who has defended the honor of French artistry against foreign arrogance. You slot back into your role at the opera as if you had never left. But something has changed. You are entering a new phase of your life. You are no longer the young, scrappy upstart. You are now an established, if still chaotic, institution. And the weight of that wild reputation is a heavy and complicated thing to carry. You are by now, probably in your early 30s. In the 17th century, this was firmly middle-aged. You have lived more in your 3 decades than most people would in 10 lifetimes. The duels, the convent fire, the royal pardons, the tumultuous love affairs, they are no longer recent events. They are your backstory, the foundation upon which your celebrity is built. Every time you walk on stage, the audience doesn't just see the character you are playing, they see the legend. They see the woman who fought 3 men in one night. They see the woman who told a prince where to stick his gold. This is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it makes you a permanent star. You are a guaranteed box office draw. People come to the opera just to be in the same room as you. Your presence has an electricity that no other performer can match. But it's a curse because the legend can be a cage. It creates expectations. People expect you to be wild, to be scandalous. A quiet evening at home is not part of the Maupin brand. This pressure to live up to your own myth must have been exhausting. You navigate the complex social world of Paris with a practiced ease. You are a master of code switching. On stage, you are a goddess, a queen, a sorceress. In the taverns and fencing halls you still frequent, you are one of the boys, trading insults and buying rounds. In the sophisticated salons, hosted by intellectual women, you can be a witty and charming conversationalist. You contain multitudes, and you deploy them as needed. This is a period of immense professional success. You are at the peak of your vocal powers, and composers are writing roles specifically for you, tailored to your unique dramatic and vocal strengths. The great composer André Camprol, one of the leading figures of the post-Lully generation, particularly favors you. You create the leading roles in some of his most famous operas, like Isaïe and Tancredi. The title role of Tancredi is especially significant. It's the first time in the history of French opera that the lead heroic role, a knight, was written not for a tenor or a baritone, but for a female contralto. The role was written for you, and only you. It was a perfect fusion of your vocal talents and your gender-bending persona. You, a woman, playing a heroic male warrior on the grandest stage in France. It was the ultimate artistic expression of your entire life. But the wildness is still there, just beneath the surface. The brawls and arguments don't stop. There's a curious detail that emerges from the opera's financial records, a fact that historians find both amusing and revealing. There are entries in the account books for reparations. Payments made to other singers or staff members for damages or injuries inflicted by you. A torn costume here, a broken chair there. The opera management seems to have accepted this as a standard operating point. The budget for Maupin included a line item for chaos. Your reputation becomes a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Are all the stories true? At this point, it's impossible to say. Your life has become a public narrative, and people project their own fantasies and fears onto you. You are a screen upon which the 17th century plays out its undoubted gender, power, and art. Did you really bite a man's ear in an argument, as one rumor suggests? Did you truly throw a difficult conductor into the orchestra pit? But the fact that people believed you were capable of such things is what matters. The legend becomes its own reality. You are walking a tightrope. You are adored, but you are also feared. You are celebrated, but you are not respectable. You have fame and fortune, but you are fundamentally an outsider. You can attend the parties of the aristocracy, but you will never be one of them. You are a performer, a creature of a different, more dangerous world. The constant need to be Maupin must have been profoundly isolating. Who could you trust? Who saw the real Julie behind the fearsome public mirrors? But true friends are likely few and far between. The weight of your past and the demands of your present are a heavy burden. You have conquered every external enemy, the law, the church, your rivals. But now you face a more insidious opponent, your own legend. You are at the top of the world, but it is a lonely, precarious place, and you are about to find the only thing that can truly ground you is the one thing that has always thrown you into chaos: love. But this time, it will be a different kind of love. A quieter, more stable, and perhaps, for the first time, a truly peaceful one. Her name is Madame la Marquise de Florence AC. She is a world away from the women you have known before. She is not a sheltered merchant's daughter or a rivalrous stage performer. She is a wealthy, intelligent, and beautiful widow, a prominent figure in Parisian high society. She hosts one of the most respected intellectual salons in the city, a gathering place for poets, philosophers, musicians, and artists. She is a woman of substance, taste, and most importantly, complete independence. How you meet is not recorded, but it is easy to imagine. You, as the reigning star of the opera, would have been a prized guest at any salon. You likely attended one of her gatherings, perhaps intending to make a brief celebrity appearance. You walk into a room filled with the greatest minds in Paris, and across that room you see her, the Marquise de Florence. She is not just a hostess, she is the sun around which this brilliant galaxy revolves, and commands the room not with a loud voice or a sharp sword, but with a quiet, unshakable confidence. She is not intimidated by you. She is not shocked by your reputation or starstruck by your fame. She is, it seems, simply interested in you. As Julie, she engages you in conversation, not about the latest opera gossip, but about music, about poetry, about life. She listens to you. She sees past the scandalous headlands to the intelligent, complex woman beneath. For you, this is a profoundly new and deeply attractive experience. A relationship begins to blossom between you, and this relationship is different. It is not a secret, whispered affair conducted in the shadows. The Marquise is a widow of independent means and high social standing. She does not need to hide. You begin to spend more and more of your time with her, in her beautiful home, surrounded by books and art. You become a regular fixture at her salon, and eventually, you move in with her. You live together, openly as a couple. This arrangement is one of the most remarkable aspects of your life. In an era when such things were meant to be hidden, you and the Marquise de Florence create a life together. This is made possible by a unique confluence of factors. She has the wealth and social standing to be immune to criticism, and you have a reputation so scandalous that, paradoxically, you are also immune. What more could people say about you that they haven't already said? You have transcended gossip. Your relationship exists in a kind of protected bubble, created by her respectability and your notoriety. The Marquise's salon is your new classroom. You are surrounded by the leading intellectuals of the age. While your formal education was famously unconventional, you are possessed of a sharp, curious mind. Here in this stimulating environment, you flourish. You engage in debates. You absorb new ideas. You refine your own thoughts on art and life. Your relationship with the Marquise is a meeting of minds, as much as it is a meeting of hearts. This period of your life is also where we encounter a small, humanizing detail that gives us a glimpse behind the legend. According to a contemporary, The Marquise de Florenzi, she was the one person whose opinion you valued above all others, the one person you would listen to. One story tells of how you were about to get into a street brawl with a coachman who had insulted you. The Marquise simply laid a hand on your arm and gave you a look. You immediately stood down. The fearsome Maupin, who would not back down from a prince or a trio of noblemen, would yield to a quiet glance from the woman she loved. This love seems to have had a profound and calming effect on you. You are still La Maupin, the star of the opera. You still perform with all your fire and passion. But the offstage brawls seem to lessen. The frantic, chaotic energy that has defined your life begins to settle. You have found a safe harbor. For 2 years, you and the Marquise lived together in what seems to be a state of genuine domestic happiness, a quiet island of peace in the turbulent sea of your life. It is a period of stability and contentment unlike any you have ever known. It is, of course, too good to last. Your story is a tragedy in music after all, and the final act is always tinged with sorrow. The Marquise de Florenzi, your brilliant, loving companion, falls ill with a fever. In the 18th century, a fever was often a death sentence. There is nothing you can do but watch, helplessly, as the one person who brought you peace slips away from you. She dies in your arms. The death of the Marquise de Florenzi in 1705 shatters your world. The safe harbor you had found is gone, and you are once again adrift on a sea of grief. You have faced down death in duels and by decree, but this is a different kind of death. It is quiet, implacable, and it has taken the one thing you had come to value most. The loss is absolute, and it will precipitate the final, most unexpected, turn in your incredible life. The death of the Marquise de Florenzi. C is the event that finally breaks your spirit. You have lived your life at a constant, feverish pitch, fueled by passion, rage, and an insatiable appetite for experience. But grief is a different kind of fire. It doesn't energize, it consumes. It hollows you out from the inside. The world, which had always seemed like a stage for your next adventure, now looks grey and meaningless. The applause of the audience sounds distant and hollow. Which had been the soundtrack to your life now feels like noise. You are heartbroken. Utterly and completely. The woman who had given you a glimpse of a peaceful, stable life is gone. The quiet center of your chaotic universe has collapsed. For the first time, the legendary La Maupin, the woman who feared nothing and no one, is lost. You try to continue. You go back to the opera, you step onto the stage, you sing the roles that made you famous. But the fire is gone. Your performances, while still technically brilliant, lack the life, the passion that had been your signature. The audience can feel it. Your colleagues can see it. You are a ghost haunting the scenes of your former triumphs. And so, at the absolute height of your fame, in 1705, the same year the Marquise dies, you make a decision that shocks the entire city of Paris. You retire. It is an announcement that makes no sense to anyone. You are still young, only in your early 30s. Your voice is at its peak. You are the undisputed queen of the French stage, earning a massive salary. Performers in your position usually clung to the spotlight until their voices gave out, until they were gently pushed aside for younger talent. They did not simply walk away. But you do. You break your contract with the opera, you turn your back on the fame and fortune, and you disappear from public life. The reaction in Paris is one of disbelief and rampant speculation. Why did she leave? The official reason given is that you are retiring to a life of penitence. This, to most Parisians, is the most unbelievable story you have ever been involved in. La Maupin, penitent, the woman who burned a convent and fought 3 duels in one night, suddenly deciding to spend her days in quiet prayer. It seems absurd, impossible. Rumors fly. Some say you've run off with a new lover, perhaps a foreign prince who finally met your standards. Others whisper that you've been secretly exiled by the king for some new, unknown scandal, even more outrageous than the last. Some believe you've simply taken your fortune and gone to live a life of quiet luxury in the countryside. No one can quite believe that the reason is as simple and as human as a broken heart. This decision to retire is a fascinating and much debated part of your biography. Was it purely out of grief? Or were other factors at play? Some historians suggest you may have been experiencing vocal fatigue. The demanding roles and the sheer number of performances you gave each season would have taken a toll on any singer. Perhaps you felt your powers beginning to wane and chose to leave at the top, rather than fade away. Another theory is that you were simply tired. Tired of the constant performance, not just on stage, but in life. Tired of being Le Maupin, of living up to the legend. The death of the Marquise didn't just break your heart, it broke your will to continue the charade. She was your one true audience, and now that she was gone, the show had no meaning. There's a small, poignant detail from this time. Before you disappear, you are said to have reconciled with your husband, the long-forgotten Monsieur Maupin. There is no record of you living with him, but it seems there was a formal, peaceful end to your strange, absentee marriage before he passed away. It's as if you were methodically tying up the loose ends of your chaotic life, closing all the doors to your past. Your retirement marks the end of an era for the Paris Opera. You left a void that was impossible to fill. You had been more than just a singer. You were a force of nature, a one-woman whirlwind of drama and talent. The stage seemed quieter, duller, after you were gone. For years, people would talk about your performances, your voice, your presence. You had become a yardstick against which all other singers were measured, and they all fell short. You have walked away from everything you fought for. The career, the fame, the wealth, the independence. You have shed the skin of Le Maupin and are now, once again, just Julie d'Aubigny, a woman with a past full of ghosts and a future that is a complete and terrifying blank. You have turned your back on the world that made you, and now you will turn to the one place that the world would never ever expect to find you. The place you once burned to the ground. Where does a legend go to disappear? Where does a person whose life has been a public spectacle find true anonymity? You have tried the open road, the bustling city, the grand stage. None of them offered peace. Now hollowed out by grief, you seek not adventure, but oblivion, a quiet place to wait for the end. And so, you make the most astonishing choice of your entire life. You return to the one institution you so famously and so flagrantly defied. You enter a convent. This time it is not a performance. It is not a ruse to rescue a lover. You are not a wolf in sheep's clothing. You are just a sheep, a lost one, seeking entry into the fold. The historical records are not clear on which specific convent you chose, only that it was likely in the south of France, perhaps even in Provence, not far from the scene of your great crime and your great love. Imagine the scene at the convent gates. You arrive, not as the flamboyant Le Maupin, but as a quiet, somber woman dressed in mourning. You are Julie d'Aubigny, a widow. You ask to be admitted. The Mother Superior would have been baffled. Your story was known to everyone in France. You were the enchantress in breeches, the woman who set a holy house on fire. And now you stand at her door, asking for sanctuary. It would have been like a notorious pirate asking to join the navy. Why would they accept you? The Church, for all its rigid rules, has a deep-seated belief in the power of redemption. The story of the repentant sinner is a cornerstone of the faith. For a figure as famously wicked as you, to seek salvation would have been seen as a monumental victory for God. To turn you away would be to deny the very possibility of grace, and perhaps, on a more practical level, you were a wealthy woman. You would have been expected to give a substantial donation to the convent upon entering, a dowry for God. Your fortune, earned through your scandalous career, would now be used to fund the quiet prayers of the very institution you once scorned. The irony is staggering. So you are admitted. You pass through the heavy doors and they close behind you, shutting out the world for the last time. The woman who kicked down every door put in front of her now willingly walks into a locked room. Life inside is the antithesis of everything you have ever known. It is a world of silence, routine, and prayer. The hours are marked by the ringing of bells. The days are a slow, repeating pattern of simple meals, manual labor, and collective worship. The vibrant, chaotic colors of your former life are replaced by the stark black and white of then a world where humility and self-effacement are the highest virtues. How did you adapt? Did you find the peace you were looking for, or was the crushing monotony a different kind of torment? The chronicles of your life, so full of detail about your public exploits, fall silent here. This final chapter is a private one. We can imagine you in this new context. We can imagine you scrubbing floors, your strong hands, which once held a sword, now holding a rough brush. We can imagine you in the convent garden, tending to the herbs. The scent of lavender and rosemary replacing the smell of stage makeup and black powder. And we can imagine you in the chapel. Your voice, the legendary contralto that had thrilled thousands, that had sung of love and war and magic, is now just one voice among many, joined in the ancient, unadorned beauty of Gregorian chant. Did the other nuns notice the extraordinary quality of the new sister's voice during Vespers? Did they whisper about it afterwards? Or was it just absorbed into the collective sound, your singular talent offered up to God as your final performance? This is the central, unanswerable question of your final years. Was your conversion genuine? Historians and biographers have debated this for centuries. Some of a more cynical mind see it as your final, greatest performance. They argue that you, the ultimate actress, simply adopted a new role, the repentant sinner, because you had grown tired of all the others. They suggest you were too much of a rebel to have ever truly submitted to the authority of the church. Others, however, take it at face value. They argue that the profound grief from the death of the Marquise de Florennes triggered a genuine spiritual crisis. You had tried everything the world had to offer: fame, love, wealth, freedom, and it had all turned to ash. In the face of a loss so absolute, perhaps the only solace you could find was in the idea of a world beyond this one. Perhaps after a lifetime of fighting, you simply wanted to surrender. You laid down your sword, your voice, your very identity, at the foot of the cross. The truth is likely something we can no longer comprehend, a complex mixture of grief, exhaustion, and perhaps a flicker of genuine faith. You were never a simple person. Your final act would not be simple either. You do not live long in the convent. Your body, which had endured so much, seems to give up once your spirit has. You die in 1707, only 2 years after the death of the Marquise, and only about 33 years old. The official cause of death is recorded simply as fever, the same vague illness that claimed your beloved. You are buried in the convent cemetery, likely in an unmarked grave, your identity as a sister in the order subsuming your legendary worldly one. A supernova of a human being flickers out not with a bang but with a quiet whisper in a forgotten corner of a provincial convent. And so you lie in the quiet earth of the convent cemetery. A simple wooden cross, if anything at all, marks the spot. The name on it would not be Maupin, the name that set Paris on fire. It would be Sister Julie, or perhaps just a number in the convent's records. The greatest celebrity of your generation has achieved perfect, final anonymity. The story, it would seem, is over. But it's not. A person may die, a body may return to dust, but a story is a different kind of entity. It has its own life. And your story is too wild, too vibrant, too defiantly alive to be buried in a quiet churchyard. While you found peace in obscurity, the legend of Maupin was just getting started. In the years and decades following your death, your story begins to take on a life of its own. It escapes the confines of court records and gossip columns and enters the realm of popular folklore. The rough, contradictory facts of your life are smoothed out, embellished, and woven into a grand, romantic narrative. You become a folk hero, a symbol of rebellion and freedom. The first proper biographies of you begin to appear, often in sensationalized collections of the lives of famous women. These accounts play up the most dramatic elements of your life, the duels, the scandalous love affairs. They are the 18th century equivalent of tabloid journalism, and they are wildly popular. You become a stock character in the European imagination, the swashbuckling, cross-dressing opera singer. Then in the 19th century, the era of Romanticism, your story is rediscovered and repopularized. The Romantics, with their love of passionate, misunderstood individuals who defy social norms, see you as a kindred spirit. Théophile Gautier, one of the giants of French literature, becomes obsessed with your story. In 1835, he publishes the novel Mademoiselle de Maupin. It is not a historically accurate biography. Instead, Gautier takes the bare bones of your life, your name, your skill with a sword, your gender bending, your operatic career, and uses them to create a fantasy, a philosophical novel about love, art, and the nature of beauty. The book is a sensation and a scandal, famous for its preface, which is a manifesto for the art for art's sake movement. Your name is once again on everyone's lips, but now it belongs to a fictional character, a romantic ideal. This is the strange double life your legacy takes. There is the historical Julie d'Aubigny, the complex, difficult, and brilliant woman pieced together by historians from court records, parish registers, and the letters of your contemporaries. And then there is Mademoiselle de Maupin, the fictional hero, the star of novels, plays, and eventually even movies and modern musicals. The two often get confused. The legend becomes so powerful that it starts to obscure the real person. This is a common fate for figures whose lives are than life. The real woman who lived and breathed becomes a myth. And myths are powerful. They tell us things about the time that created them. The 18th century saw you as a shocking cautionary tale. The 19th century saw you as a romantic hero. The 20th and 21st centuries have rediscovered you again, this time as a feminist icon, a queer trailblazer, a symbol of someone who lived unapologetically, loving who she loved and fighting anyone who stood in her way. Historians, of course, continue to do their work. They dig in the archives, they cross-reference sources, they try to separate the verifiable facts from the later embellishments. The academic debate about you is a quiet, ongoing fire. Was your relationship with Cecilia more important than your affair with Thevenard? How much of the duel story is true, and how much is theatrical exaggeration? Did you really have a good singing voice, or was your fame more about your scandalous persona? This last question is particularly fascinating. Music historians try to reconstruct your vocal abilities from the roles that were written for you and the descriptions of your contemporaries. The consensus is that yes, the voice was very real and very special. You were not just a gimmick, you were a transcendent talent. And so, you exist now in these multiple forms. You are a collection of historical facts, a character in a famous novel, and a powerful, enduring myth. You are a testament to the idea that a single life, lived with courage and a breathtaking disregard for the rules, can echo for centuries. You refuse to be put in any of the boxes your world provided for you. Woman, wife, sinner, you kicked the walls of all of them down and built a life of your own design. The story ends where it began with a question. Who were you? The answer depends on who you ask, and when you ask them. But perhaps the most honest answer is that you were and are La Maupin. A woman so vivid, so alive, that not even death could be the final curtain. Your opera is still being performed. And now the story gently fades, the footlights of the 17th century dim, and the thunderous applause of the Paris opera softens into the quiet hum of your own room. The ghost of Julie d'Aubigny, with her sword and her psalm, recedes into the soft mists of history, leaving behind only a faint echo, a sense of a life lived without compromise, a life burned so brightly. You can feel that quiet now settling around you like a soft, heavy blanket. There are no more duels to be fought, no more frantic escapes, no more crowds to please. All the drama and the chaos have resolved into a simple, peaceful stillness. The only thing that matters now is the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, in undoubt, a slow, steady tide pulling you further away from the shore of Versailles. Imagine yourself drifting on that quiet tide, floating in a place of perfect comfort and safety. The character of Julie, with all her fire and her fury, was a whirlwind, but you are the calm at the eye of the storm. You can let her energy go, letting it dissipate like heat from a cooling ember, leaving only a pleasant warmth behind. Perhaps you can feel that warmth spreading through you now, a gentle, soothing sensation, loosening every muscle, quieting every thought. The story was a path we walked together for a time. But now you can let the path dissolve behind you. There is nowhere left to do but rest. You are safe, you are comfortable, and you are drifting peacefully into the deep and welcoming quiet of your own dream. The final page is turned. If your eyelids are still not heavy, another story might be the final lullaby you need. Sleep sweetly. Good night.